Breast milk, you made my day.
Welcome into your Tuesday night show here on World Class Bullshitters. We're going to call tonight's show the High Council because that's what it is. And folks, we have a fun show, we have a sad show, but we have a big show planned for you tonight. So, let's introduce the co-host. You already know who I am. I'm Jeff. I run this channel. You may know me from such videos as the Ollie's Toy videos, dozens of other topics, and my comic books. But let's say hello to our other co-hosts. First off, all the way from the Rippaverse, you know him, you love him. Say hello to Andy Andrew.
What is going on, Jeff? What is going on, chat? I am back from Fan Expo Dallas, where we had a fantastic time meeting a whole lot of people, making some new fans, seeing some new faces, seeing some familiar faces, hanging out with James Arnold Taylor, the iconic voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Clone Wars, as well as many video game characters and animation characters. So that was a total blast and an awesome blessing to have been a part of. And I am thrilled to be back here and doing the greatest show on a Tuesday night.
Well, we're happy to have you, man, because it wouldn't be as great as it is without you. And another man who is joining us from a great distance, the Great White North. Say hello to the one, the only, the Script Doctor.
Hey, everybody. Happy to be here tonight. We're going to have a great show for all of you. So sit back, relax, and yeah, let's get on.
Yes, folks, sit down and relax because we have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about this Disney news in the most digestible way you've heard on the internet today. We have everything lined up for you. We even have some questions we're going to ask, so make sure you guys get involved with that. But shout out to our wonderful chat. We have Gojira97, we have Shrubbles08, Swift-1, AJT Comics Brand says, I make my own comics. Well, I'm excited to check those out. Tag me on Twitter. I'd love to see what you got. Shout out to Clone Geek. Hello to Xavier to God and a whole lot more, like Adorth Bay. So hello, welcome in. I'm glad you're strapped in. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But folks, before we start tonight's show where we talk about a myriad of entertainment topics, good, bad, funny, we have to play a little game called The Word of the Day, which is sponsored by our friend Shrubbles08. And the word of the day, we're talking about food here, is graped. Freddie got graped.
Oh.
Hold on a second.
Hold on.
Normally, when you try to put the word of the day title, it's to make it weirder, but Freddy Got Fingered is already weird. Like, you can't make it any weirder.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. I feel like that was already non-consensual.
Yeah, didn't even happen.
That was non-consensual fruiting.
I mean, you could go weirder with Freddie Got Dirty Sanchez. Or Freddie Got a Cleveland Steamer, or, just...
One time, I will have to tell you the Cleveland Steamer story. My friend used to work at Kroger, and he comes up, and he starts talking about a Cleveland Steamer and hot Carl, and the lady at the meat counter didn't know what it was, the other employee, and, like, she wanted us to explain this stuff, and my mom was there. I couldn't do it, so... No. Anyway, though, I've lived an interesting life, man, all right? I want to write a book about it. When we're not kidnapping Harrison Ford, I'm doing crazy shit like that. But let's see. We have Sisterhood of the Traveling Grapist. How Stella got graped. Event Grape Horizon. Grapeland. On Her Majesty's Secret Graping. And a Fistful of Grape.
On Her Majesty's Secret Graping was kind of funny.
Look, James Bond is all consensual, okay? He's never had to force it on anybody. That's where the Mary Sue women get it all wrong. Oh, he's so terrible.
See that teaser for the new Bond game?
Oh, that dropped? I just saw the image. Okay.
Yeah, just the image. Yeah, teaser image.
I was a little more interested and disappointed in the Hot Toy doll that they released an image of, because for years I've been saying, give Hot Toys the James Bond license, they're going to knock it out of the park, and they start with No Time to Die.
And they did Daniel Craig.
but it looks kind of shit. So if it looked really good, like if it was a Casino Royale Bond from that scene where he's playing the Texas Hold'em, maybe I would have bit. But it's like old Daniel Craig, and it looks like he has a broken nose, and you could just feel that he doesn't want to be there. So I'm passing on this one. Hopefully the license extends beyond this one Daniel Craig doll, and we can get Connery. I'll buy literally anybody else. Like, if you give me George Lazenby next, I'm there. With the frilly cravat and all that shit. I unapologetically love On Her Majesty's Secret Service. It's in my top 5. It's the most underrated Bond because everyone goes, "Oh, I've not watched that one. It's the bad one." No, it's one of the best ones. You could argue it is the best one. And if you haven't watched
it's the best one because it's got such a tragic ending, unlike any other Bond film.
Yeah. And another thing I like too, Script, you'll know this because you probably watched tons of 60s films. It was very modern. There were a lot of James Bond elements from the earlier Connerys that felt super dated, and it was just like, and I'm going by like what I've done with research. Like if you look at stuff with the Beatles, James Bond feels like he's so out of place in like 1960s, the British zeitgeist. But when you get to 69 with the On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he feels very contemporary, very modern. His suits are cut differently. The music's very,
that Louis Armstrong bit was the first. It's like it sticks out as a sore thumb, but it actually works exactly as it needs to for that sequence, because you've never heard something like that in a Bond film before.
And it has the Moog synthesizer, which is one of the first movies to have that. So John Barry's score is synth heavy in the 1960s when we're still doing traditional scores, and Jerry Goldsmith is, tearing it up left and right with his great work. So I guess we should respond to the word of the day. The Graping of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
That's a good one. Speaking of 70s films, and Walter Matthau at best. Lord of the Grapes.
Easy enough.
Dude, where's my grapes?
Clear and present grapes.
The Grape Redemption.
Albert Brooks defending my grapes.
Stop or my
History
mom
of the
will...
Grapes Part 1.
Stop or my mom will grape.
Tiger Grape 2.
Electric Boogaloo?
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Grape.
Rolling Grape. Or Grape
A Nightmare on Grape Street.
That was the whole accusation.
Grape 4.
Oh my God. Folks, you could play your grape titles all night long. The chat is definitely involved with that. We got Kung Fu Grape, Bridge Over the River Graped, Gone with the Grapes, Grapes of Grapes. Jesus.
What's eating Gilbert Grape?
There you go. We've come full circle. That's the new rule. If we come full circle where the word of the day is actually on a title, then we just end it. It's like, boom, there we go. But folks, you keep playing at home.
I had a couple more, like Big Grape Pee-wee.
Big Graping in Little China?
See no grape, hear no grape. What about Grape?
The Big
Dr.
Grape.
Leo Marvin.
The Last Grape in Paris?
Oh God, I've seen The Last Tango in Paris once. That's the Brando movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Freebie and the Grape.
Cornbread Grape and Me.
Pray for Grape.
I wouldn't. So, folks, if you have fruit titles, send them in. Pineapples, oranges, watermelon, banana, you name it, we'll eat it. World-class bullshitters. Shout out to Luigi, who has been quoting Monty Python. I'm a huge Monty Python fan. I prefer the show over the movies, so when you're quoting the Lumberjack song, it's right down my alley. My personal favorite is the Dead Parrot. Polly!
Oh.
That's the shit that always kills me.
Great one.
Yeah. Xavier to God says James Arnold Taylor played Spider-Man and Harry Osborn.
Yeah, he's also Ratchet in the Ratchet and Clank games. He's Magneto in Marvel Rivals.
Does he also do the clones on the Clone Wars?
I think no, he doesn't do the clones, but he does do Plo Koon as well, which I learned.
Oh, I must be thinking of D. Bradley Baker's the other guy that's big on that show. Is that?
You might be thinking that, yeah.
Okay.
But it was funny because I learned this weekend that he did Plo Koon as well, because I was looking at his like the 8x10s and stuff that he would sign for fans and whatnot, and I was like, why the hell's Plo Koon on here? And then that's when it hit me. I was like, this guy also voiced Plo Koon? Like, it sounds completely different. And like without missing a beat, I asked him about it, and he starts by talking in the Obi-Wan Kenobi voice, and then he just shifts right into Plo Koon. And I'm like, what? It was cool.
I love watching a voice actor do the voice because the King of the Hill revival was announced this past week. And folks, you know me. I love King of the Hill. I want to give a shout out to a couple listeners who found it imperative to text me right away and say, hey, Jeff, did you see the King of the Hill stuff? I hadn't. So you guys helped me catch it. I was really pumped. I'm there on day one. Love that show. When I moved out west, I made a friend with the lady that was the background painter on all the episodes. Coolest person I got to know in California. So I can't wait to watch the new show. But there's a video of Mike Judge introducing the clips, and he's doing the Hank voice, and I'm just like, it's so weird seeing Mike Judge do that voice. It's like when you hear him do Beavis and Butthead, and you're just like, oh, you're just a dude, not those characters. So,
Yeah.
Let's talk, since I brought up King of the Hill and we're talking about voice actors, let's talk briefly about a sad passing. So, folks, if you've watched King of the Hill, you know that the Hill family are the main protagonists, but you have all the neighbors and you have the side characters like Buck Strickland, Khan, and of course John Redcorn. And sadly, the voice actor who plays John Redcorn has been, he's been shot, sadly. So, let's see, what was his name? Actually, the actor Jonathan Joss has been shot and killed by his neighbor. Now, the press is trying to spin it one way. We're going to talk about it a little more directly without trying to insinuate motivations and stuff. But Script, we were talking briefly off air about this. What have you heard about the shooting of Jonathan Joss, a.k.a. John Redcorn?
I've heard that him and his next-door neighbor have had an ongoing feud for a few years now. Also, fun fact, I just saw that, one of my friends on the YouTube sphere, Nina Infinity, she did a video on that. And I'm skimming through that, and it's looking pretty bang on point. But, so Jonathan Joss has had a tumultuous relationship with this particular neighbor. They've gotten into a number of fights. Also, not too long ago, his house tragically burned down, and there's still not definitive reason as to why it burnt down. One rumor is that he was cooking meth in his home, and him and his husband went to a hotel to air it out, and I guess they didn't completely shut down the procedure, and that caused the fire. Another rumor is that someone may have broken into his home and set the place on fire while he and his husband were away. He's a struggling actor. He doesn't have electricity in his home, so when it was cold, he went to rent a hotel. And when he returned to his home after a few days, or after a day, I think the story was, he went back to his home to feed his dogs, and the house was burned down, and he has no idea if his dogs lived or died, and we don't even have a confirmation if that's the case. We don't know if they got away or if they were tragically caught in the fire. It's horrible situation. And it's right now the police have not ruled out, have basically said there's currently no evidence that this was a hate crime. Everything points to the ongoing feud between Jonathan Joss and his neighbor, who has been arrested, and I believe he's got a bail price of around like $250K to be released, but I don't think he's going to be released. I don't think he's making bail. So and right around the time when I believe he reprised his role for this current season of King of the Hill. So this would, I think, be the third cast member that has passed away, because it was Brittany Murphy, it was the guy who played Dale Gribble, and then now him.
Johnny Hardwick. Fourth, because Tom Petty is the voice of Lucky Kleinschmidt.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
This is like a cursed show almost.
Sadly, because the weird thing is, because I'm like deep into the King of the Hill fan base, most people just consider the show pretty spot on. Not really any bad episodes outside of one called Mrs. Wakefield. And it's like, it's got this positive fan base. People just love it. It's like talked about positively. There's not a lot of arguing, but it seems like a lot of bad stuff's been happening around the show. And you're not the first person that I've seen today call King of the Hill cursed. And it's really sad because this revival looks like it's on point. I mean,
it's great.
The clips have me like, I had a family member I haven't talked to in a year, and we're like talking again over King of the Hill. Like, that's how excited we all are about this show. I can't wait. It comes out in August. Like, I was excited for Superman, but if I had to pick one, it's King of the Hill. Like, Hank has always been wonderful.
It was also a groundbreaking show because it was the first one that actually took one of the kid characters and aged them up, and that was Joseph.
Oh, yeah. He went through puberty.
And
That was a
it's
great
and it
episode.
screwed around with the networks because they didn't figure out they didn't know how to re-air their old shows through the syndication agreement that they had, because people would be watching it and all of a sudden Joseph would be, midst of teenager puberty, and then next week's episode he'd be back to a younger kid, like with Bobby and them. And and Mike Judge said, sorry, no, I'm doing this.
I would always use that as a litmus test because I would watch the show in syndication and on Sunday nights, and I'd be like, oh, we're watching this season because Joseph is older or taller now. And he had I think it was the same voice actor or voice actress. I don't know. She was just doing a different tone.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's I haven't looked any deeper into just the promo because I don't want to be too spoiled, but I'm wondering if they got a new voice actor for Bobby because he's like 23 now.
I think it's still Pamela Segal Adlon because she's the lady in Louie.
Yeah.
And I think it's because there's a clip of Bobby talking about, he says the word nutsack. I don't know what the context is, but his voice, it just sounds like an older version of Bobby Hill. So I think it's the same woman. I hope it is. Because that makes or breaks it for me on these shows where, like, they have to sound right. I can accept that the characters are older or this and that. Like, Peggy Hill looks scary, but
well,
I hope
Peggy
they
Hill's
all
my
sound right.
favorite character to not like in that show because I love all the characters, but Peggy Hill is like insufferable, but entertainingly insufferable.
Oh, I agree. She's not. I also love episodes where she gets shit on because she's so smug at other times, and then you see her go through these human moments, and you're like, oh, this is a really well written cartoon. She's actually a person, even though she's a drawing. So
Yeah. I mean, I love like the episode where she went skydiving and then her chutes didn't bowl, and then she's in a body cast for like a few episodes after that. I thought those were some of the funniest episodes I'd seen in a while.
I love that one. I also love where she gets mad that Randy Travis stole her song, and she tries to. They all think she's gonna poison his Apple Brown Betty. That, like I said earlier, there isn't a single bad episode of King of the Hill outside of Mrs. Wakefield. That's the only one I'm like, I'm gonna turn it off because it's about an old lady that wants to come die in their house, and it's just, I don't know why it just doesn't work for me.
I think I've only seen that once and never went back to it.
Yeah, it's. There are other better Christmas episodes, like the one where they have to take the semi across country and deliver the dinette set on Christmas Eve and make it back home for Christmas Day, and they get all the truckers to help them do a convoy, and they have that country song. That's a great episode.
I like the episode where Hank told Mr. Strickland that he loved him. That was funny.
Another Christmas one.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a great one. JC, Jesus Christ, no, it's Jimmy Carter. Like that is.
Oh, and when he shakes the hand of President H.W. Bush, W. Bush, and he's got the limp handshake.
Dude, I could go on for hours and hours about King of the Hill, and I would enjoy it because that's what I do at lunch. Like I work on channel stuff, I eat lunch, I watch a King of the Hill, and then I go back into comic book mode. And King of the Hill is just the perfect palate cleanser. I always laugh. It's so well made, and I'm hoping that the writing continues on that path.
Well, I've seen Mike Judge's Beavis and Butthead, and I think he nailed it. So I think he's still well in that spot, in that headspace, which I think will be very refreshing when we come to see King of the Hill.
I agree, man. I do watch Beavis and Butthead on streaming, and every time I turn on an episode, I'm laughing my ass off. I'm behind, admittedly. Like, I'm a whole season behind on that. And it never like the one where Beavis finds the corn chip that has Jesus on it, and he tries to go to a Catholic priest, and the Catholic priest won't give him an answer. He makes him read all these books. So then he goes to a Jewish temple, and the rabbi's like, well, we don't really believe in Jesus. And they start talking about Iron Man. And then he goes somewhere else. Oh, he finds an abstinence group, and he ends up falling out of a chair, and he like blacks out, and like the rabbi, the priest, and Iron Man appear to him in a vision about getting laid. It's the funniest shit I've ever seen. So I just can't wait for this. But like you had said, some of the press is trying to conflate hate crimes with this shooting and things like that, I guess, to not pop a buy rate. This isn't wrestling, but to get people talking on social media. And this is just the first image I found about his passing.
Yeah, because that's him from Parks and Rec.
Yeah, he looks so much like John Redcorn. It's kind of funny.
He does. Well, I like the jokes that he did in Parks and Rec, especially when like he claimed that there was a curse, and then he just says nonsense words to get rid of the curse.
Parks and Rec was my pandemic show. I watched every episode. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, like it takes off once you get midway through the second season because the first season was a little rough, and because you had who's that guy?
Mark Brandanowitz.
Mark Brandanowitz. Yeah, he was the weakest link of that show.
Yeah,
and he's a good actor too, which is like they just didn't know what to do with that character.
He didn't really feel necessary because it was like he had a relationship with Leslie Knope at some point, or at least it kind of seemed like it. But then it was just, I don't know. It was the right choice. Plus, Chris Pratt was the best.
Yeah, Burt Macklin, FBI.
I was Burt Macklin for Halloween one year. I got the FBI jacket in my closet. I don't know why I forgot the word. I almost said my pocket. Not my pocket. There's nothing in my pocket. But no, I loved Burt Macklin. I did all of that shit. That was my last Halloween. And Enrique in the chat is here. He was at my Halloween party. He saw me dressed up as Burt Macklin FBI. It was the shit.
I've done the Ron Swanson costume a few times back in the day before the pandemic. He's one of my favorite characters because I agree with so much of what he does.
He's hilarious.
Of course, I don't have any Tammys, so I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't either. Thankfully. But then again, I don't have an April Ludgate either, which you ever notice in that show they never really had like a relationship issue. They're kind of weird together and it worked. Because so many shows have all this like on again, off again drama to keep people watching. And that show didn't. It was just kind of refreshing.
Yep. I also think when Adam Scott came onto the show, the romance subplot was actually pretty authentic. Because it wasn't like love at first sight or easy. It was just difficult, and then they kind of found each other. I'm like, that's not bad. That's good pacing.
And the Cones of Dunshire was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I do want to play that game.
My only problem with Adam Scott is he was so amazing in Step Brothers, and every time I see him in a role where he's not a dick like Derek, I'm kind of disappointed because I'm like, oh, it's Derek. What's he going to say this time? And then you're just like, oh, he's kind of a normal dude.
He's actually a nice guy this episode of this thing.
You want to punch me in the face? And I just love that movie. I don't really know what to say about
you're going to wake the neighbors.
I love when they go into the house to try to sell it, and he's all painted up blue. He's like, he just died this morning.
Yeah.
Andrew, you've seen Step Brothers, right?
I have not.
Oh, what the hell? You don't even know what boats and hose means, man.
Or the Catalina wine mixer.
It's the biggest helicopter racing event in the Northern Hemisphere.
I've heard those phrases uttered by friends. I have never seen the context in which they reside.
It will never be too late to like when Aaron Sparrow is on. The Goonies were a little too late for him, but Step Brothers is perfect for any era. It's so funny.
All right.
Oh, I forgot Adam Scott was Uncle Ben. Ew.
Yeah, but they didn't treat him terribly in that movie.
I have seen worse Marvel movies than Madam Web.
Madam Web has just a fascination to it where you're like, I'm still convinced that some scenes were written by AI. I have not been found a good counter argument to say it hasn't.
I wouldn't be surprised. All I can tell you is that I saw the movie in an empty theater by myself. I laughed. I ate popcorn. I laughed. It wasn't even a comedy, but it was a good time.
We were all wondering why the heck we couldn't see Sydney Sweeney in the Black Widow in that Black Spider-Woman costume for more in the movie.
Well, now you can get her bath soap water, which we talked about on Thursday night's show. So
no.
Yeah,
I'm good actually.
I'll smell like Old Spice before I smell like whatever Sydney Sweeney washed off her body.
What if she smelled like In-N-Out grease and like dish soap? That'd be disappointing.
Yeah, that would prove it's a scam.
Yeah,
right off the bat.
I don't have any desire to know what Sydney Sweeney or any other female celebrity smells like.
Agreed. I'm already terrified of Gwyneth Paltrow and her stupid candles.
Oh, the one that exploded that smelled like her cooter? That was crazy.
Yes. Fortunately, I have not known anyone that purchased one of those candles.
The joke's on you. They were all purchased by Gwyneth Paltrow because she's really into her own smells. So.
Yeah, because listen, if I walk in to someone's home and I get a whiff of like middle-aged woman vag, I am going to turn around and leave.
That's, probably a fair position to have. I don't think anybody with their head screwed on straight would really give you grief for that.
Yeah, well, Goop.com was a very early segment on our early WCBS episodes. So, folks, I'm sure Clone Geek knows that we've talked about Goop many times. Want to give a shout out to a new listener. Final Fantasy Fan 12 says, "Hey, first time here." Well, Final Fantasy Fan
Welcome.
12, welcome to the show. We talk
Hey.
about pop culture, entertainment. Hopefully, you found us through one of our videos. But we talk about any kind of entertainment subject. So if you got questions, let us know. I even like gaming. It's just not a topic the audience seems to gravitate towards. But I'm enjoying my Game Pass subscription, and I still don't know if Nick has it yet. So, Clone Geek, I can't tell you.
Yeah, I caught that part last Thursday.
I'll see Nick. Oh yeah, folks. By the way, everybody that's watching, we'll be in Oregon this week. I will be flying out there on Thursday. Nick and I are going to be making a Goonies documentary where we go to the locations for the 40th anniversary. We're going to the events that they're hosting in Astoria, Oregon. So you can join us there. It'll be a Patreon exclusive, but it'll be a lot of fun. Clone Geek, Goop is a prominent part of the early episodes of WCBS. We used to get emails in our mail.com account from Goop. I don't know how we got signed up, but it was junk mail that we kept opening and they kept sending it. So we got the whole like scented candle. I don't know what's the classier way to describe it. Like, for those who don't know, Gwyneth Paltrow had a candle made of her downstairs parts to smell like that, and they caught fire at one point because they were made with unregistered. I don't know what they were made with, but they caught fire. Like, they would explode.
Unregistered cooter.
Yeah.
Well, the funny part is that they made a candle, and Gwyneth Paltrow. It was a series of different experiments for candles and scented candles, and one of them happened to smell exactly like Gwyneth Paltrow's cooter, and she picked that one to sell. Like, they just stumbled onto it somehow. Like, it was not intentionally done. She goes, "Oh my gosh, this one smells like me, so let's do that." And I thought, okay, Gwyneth, you have lost the marbles.
Yeah.
You ever hear that story how she saved somebody inadvertently on 9/11?
No.
Yeah, look it up. I think it was somebody of note. They were on their way to the World Trade Center, and randomly, some bitchy woman kept trying to pull out of a parking lot and almost hit this lady. And the lady in the car was Gwyneth Paltrow, and she was so insufferable, she caused this lady to be late for her meeting at the World Trade Center and saved her life inadvertently. So, look it up.
I'd
It's
never
kinda
heard
crazy.
that
There you go.
before.
That's. I'm surprised Gwyneth Paltrow was driving a car herself.
It was early 2000s, so I'm sure she was riding high off the Shakespeare in Love fame, and she's like, she wasn't Pepper Potts yet, so.
No.
Yeah.
I kind of liked her as Pepper Potts, and then I realized, this is Gwyneth Paltrow, and she's just acting, so.
I loved her
let's
as
lower my
Pepper.
expectations.
She worked great.
I thought she was a perfect Pepper. And she had great chemistry with RDJ.
She did. I had no opinion of the character before the movies because I grew up watching the Iron Man cartoon for a brief period of time, and then Iron Man was
the
the biggest
90s
character,
one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, with that bitchin' theme song.
Yeah. Well, second season had the better theme song. The first one had that very cheap one.
Yeah. Just like the Fantastic Four.
Yep.
On the outer space adventure, they were hit by cosmic rays. It was so corny.
There was an episode of Fantastic Four cartoon where Johnny Storm does a musical number, and I remember it was playing on the background when I was like as a kid playing with like Legos or something, and my mom comes in. It was the first time I ever heard her say, "This cartoon is super gay," and she just switched it to something else, and I didn't care because I was just playing with my Legos.
Well, Mother Script Doctor was correct.
It was.
It was very gay.
Like, their first episode was them on a talk show selling a book. Like, that's what the first episode of Fantastic Four was. It's like these guys didn't even get how to do Fantastic Four.
Based on early reviews, I don't think the new people know how to get Fantastic Four. But
it's a hard franchise that doesn't really translate to live action as effectively as you'd like it to.
Just do The Incredibles. Just look at The Incredibles ripped off the Fantastic Four. They're all owned by Disney.
And
who's going to get
managed
sued?
to do it better.
Oh,
Yeah,
they mixed Fantastic Four with a James Bond film. That's why it worked so well.
Yeah, because the 60s are so intrinsic to why the Fantastic Four works. It's a space race comic book.
Yeah.
It's once once we actually landed on the moon, or however you want to believe it, somebody sent me a super chat to listen to this Joe Rogan show, and so I did, and now all I've been thinking about are these conspiracy things. But long story short, like once we, the space race was over, the Fantastic Four kind of lost its luster. It was like Reed Richards, this great adventure, was now going to dimensions and this and that, and our sense of wonder and excitement and heroism was just like, we're done. Now it's time to get into the 70s and Watergate and all that fun shit.
Well,
Vietnam.
the biggest misstep with regards to the moon landings is the fact that they didn't leave anything there for them to build off of to make a colony. That was the problem. Like, that should have been the next step. They just kept going there to get rocks and rocks. And the next part should be like, okay, we got the rocks. Now let's, like, drop a payload of something so that the next mission can drop another payload. And eventually they'll assemble it all together and we'll actually have a base on the moon. Because that would have kept inspiration with humanity for definitely another generation. Be like, hey, there's a base on the moon. It's like, it's actually there. There's people that live there for a few months of the year.
Yeah, Dr. Evil lives there. He's got his giant laser.
Yeah, it's the Alan Parsons Project.
That's such a good joke.
It was brilliant.
Why don't you call it Operation Wang Chung, ass? Let's check in with our wonderful audience before we start talking about tonight's main event. Folks, hit that thumbs up button. The numbers have been going up. We've been getting a lot more views on other platforms, but if you're watching here on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button to let us know that you enjoy the content. It helps us out. And do us a favor, keep talking in the chat. I'm reading it. We love it. And last week when we did Bracket Battle, we had more comments than we've had in like a year. So you guys clearly like Bracket Battle. We're behind the scenes working diligently to bring you that show. It's going to be its own regular show in a 1-hour time slot. It's going to feature guests from all over the internet. It's not just going to be a WCBS thing. So be on the lookout for that show in the coming months. It'll be a summer event. We'll probably launch it right around maybe after 4th of July. We'll have the finalized version, but there are going to be some beta versions that we play along, that you can play along at home with. And the final version will include the fans playing along at home. I've been getting a lot of a lot of interest from this show. So join us, be a part of it. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, listen to Laden Swallow. Close the gap. Or close the blast door, whatever you want to say. And yes, I watched UPN. That's where SmackDown was. So I watched UPN every week.
UPN.
Yep. It was
what were the cartoons that were on that in the late 90s? I'm trying to think.
The Incredible Hulk.
I didn't watch that one, actually.
That had oh god,
Ferrigno? Was he the voice of the Hulk?
no, Ferrigno was the voice of the Hulk, but the guy who's voiced Bruce Banner, he's been in a ton of movies. He was the bad guy in the last 2 Taylor Sheridan shows. He was the bad guy in Tulsa King, the white-haired bad guy, McConnell.
Was it Neil McDonough?
Yeah, Neil McDonough was the first Incredible Hulk voice.
Oh,
And
I was not
funnily
aware of
enough,
that.
a former SNL star was the first was the cartoon voice for Iron Man. Robert. He was in Airplane too.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Not Robert Stack. I know you're talking about. I just watched Airplane the other night.
Yeah, it's not Robert Stack, even though we all want to say Robert Stack because he's awesome.
Yeah.
It's the other. It's the other guy.
You know what I'm going to use
striking.
AI for? I'm going to have Robert Stack voice like superheroes. That would be amazing. Robert Stack is Batman. I think the Joker would just be scared. He'd be like, shit, I'm done. Thank you, Enrique Vasquez, for being a member as well. Enrique says, script, you beat me to it. I was about to say curse. The Curse of King of the Hill.
Yeah, Curse the King of the Hill. Now that is a documentary.
I guess I should make it since I love the show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me write that down. I will in a minute. Thank you, Enrique. Enrique also says, don't forget the original John Redcorn voice actor died. I did know that, but I don't know what the circumstances are. Enrique also says, I would argue that Leslie Knope is a strong woman done right. She doesn't bring anyone down, especially men, and she can be very feminine in terms of her traits.
Oh, yeah. Like she gets excited for birthdays that aren't her own.
Wow.
Yeah, she also freaked out when Ron Swanson's kid John was born, and Ron didn't tell anybody, and the carriage baby's just there in the carriage in the office.
Yeah, I like her. I wouldn't call myself like an Amy Poehler diehard fan,
Right?
Because like the movie Baby Mama is garbage,
Okay.
and
It's really bad.
Blades of Glory is funny, but she's fine in Blades of Glory. But Leslie Knope is her best character, so I was all about that. And you're right, Enrique. See, I'm watching this show called Duster on HBO Max, and it's so close to being really entertaining, but they keep writing the character, the black female FBI agent, is like this stereotypical, and like the show's very cool at times, but then it falls into that like, let's have a modern day commentary about race relations of the 1970s. And so it makes me dislike this show a little bit, because I just wanted to watch a fun show about a dude in the 70s who drove a bitchin' car, but it's turned into this other thing, and it's still entertaining, but I didn't get that from Parks and Rec. It's nothing to do, like, that's where people on the internet like to conflate, like, oh, they hate women. No, nobody hates women on these shows. They're bad characters, and they're defined by really basic traits, and they should have a little more depth, and therefore, and a little more nuance, and they could be more relatable. But if you're not, black woman in the 70s trying to prove that you're this and that, you might not relate to the character, and you might be a little turned off to it, and that's where I'm coming from.
Especially if it's a black woman in a 70s show where she's not trying to be hip, awesome, cool, like Pam Grier, like that. Whew, she was great, especially in Coffee, especially in Foxy
Brown.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, Pam Grier's hot. Like, if we ever do a bracket battle, like finest actresses of all time, she'll have a spot on there. I don't know where she'll go because it's all about a process of elimination, but I would at least nominate her to be up there. She's like the Kelly LeBrock of the 70s to me. But that's a topic for another time. Thank you, though, Enrique. Xavier to God says, Iron Man's best theme is from Armored Adventures. Xavier to God, I didn't watch that show because it came out when I was 20 or 19 or 20. And yeah, I was watching like the MCU, but that show looked a little too kiddified. And let me be a hypocrite and say I was watching the Spectacular Spider-Man. So
as far as anything, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done. Sorry.
I was just about to say, as far as I'm concerned, Iron Man's theme is anything from AC/DC. That's basically just what it is.
Shoot the Thrill's a bitchin' song.
I still
flies down. And...
Well, that's my favorite AC/DC song too. So.
Well, I mean, don't leave out Black Sabbath's actual Iron Man song.
That's true.
Yes. And that is fair, and they did have that in the first film, right?
Yeah, they even had the full instrumental one without the lyrics, which I was shocked because that was really cool.
Just something hits different when Tony's flying in the armor and AC/DC starts blasting. Like that to me that represents to me a peak era that we will possibly, very likely, never see again in superhero comic book films on that scale, because when that was still going on, man, like the movies were still so much fun.
Yeah, also AC/DC is,
and I was just always hyped when that started happening, right?
Are they easy to get the rights to? You said script?
Oh, they're the cheapest ones out there. In fact, I think you and I both could afford it for our channels if we wanted to.
Are you serious?
All right. Let's get Big Balls as our official theme song.
Oh, I love Big Balls. And you like Big Balls. Really and we all love Big Balls together.
Yeah.
Just see, now I'm like, oh man, I want some Shoot the Thrill, some Thunderstruck.
Yeah. Long way from
Andrew,
the top.
When we hang out, if we're having a couple drinks, we should play a drinking game called Thunderfucked. You ever heard about that one?
I have not.
So you stand in a circle and you figure out who goes first, and every time Thunderstruck is said, somebody takes a drink. And you have to hold it until they say Thunderstruck the next time, and then the next person picks it up. But there's a point in the song where he says Thunderstruck, and then there's a long solo and an instrumental, and you have to keep drinking the entire time until he says Thunderstruck after that. And so if you get Thunderfucked, you might not be, alive.
Okay.
Sly C, that is a great song choice, by the way. The End of the Avengers, that is a good song. That was the last movie crossover song that I remember. That in Skyfall, so 2012. Those were the last two movie songs that I remember hearing on the radio. Hell, I heard Skyfall at a Taco Bell once. I was like, shit, James Bond.
Are you serious?
Cool. Yeah, I was going through a drive-thru to pick up a drink, and I heard Let the Sky Fall. I was like, no way. So I'm always tuned into 007. Enrique says, Jeff, if you like the JRE with AJ, check out the Y-Files. Here's the thing, dude. I actually watched the Y-Files. I didn't realize that was the dude until he started talking about that annoying fish. And I was like, oh, it's that dude. I already watched these videos. So I'm on board. Our friend Gunnar also says, first off, Gunnar, thanks for being a member for 9 months. The first John Redcorn Victor Aaron was born in the Jackrabbit roping capital of Texas. I was not aware of that. I didn't even know his name, so thank you. Shout out to Victor Aaron, R.I.P., sir. Even though John Redcorn is a character I kind of dislike. My favorite episodes of King of the Hill are after he and Nancy stop getting together. I don't know why, but it's funnier when Dale and her hook up than it is when Dale's oblivious.
I mean, I love the irony that Dale, the biggest conspiracy nut out there, who sees everything, just can't see that his wife's cheating on him.
He doesn't want to know. All right, guys. So it is time to start talking about the Disney financial bloodbath, if you will, because today, earlier this morning, the news started coming out about what's going on. And so we have covered positives, negatives, all sorts of stuff about Disney. And tonight we're going to talk about the numbers. We're going to talk about the whys. We're going to talk about everything. We have Script Doctor, who has worked in Hollywood. He knows his stuff. Andrew and I know our stuff as well. And we're here to talk about that. So, folks, get comfortable. Here's the meat of the show. And if you're a vegetarian, well, whatever you find people eat, it's your time to enjoy too. So, we're going to start talking about these layoffs. Let's see. How many people were laid off? Was it 70? They're trying to cut costs of $7.5 billion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you guys pay attention to a lot of big companies. I pay attention to entertainment companies. I couldn't tell you what, Tesla's doing in the stock market. But I can tell you that a lot of companies that produce content that I watch, like wrestling, TKO, they have been cutting costs by letting wrestlers go, not renewing contracts. And it seems across the board, and I understand how business works, and these people have a fiduciary responsibility to their investors, but it seems like companies are so obsessed with their profit margins that they're cutting off their nose to spite their face, and a lot of things are happening just across the board. It's not just Disney, it's not just TKO, it's a lot of these big companies, and I think we're going to see a lot more adverse effects. Before we jump into this, have you guys noticed any big companies that are kind of doing the same thing as Disney?
Well, this is, I think, this time last year, Disney laid off around at least 7,000 people.
Yeah.
And then they follow that up with like another 5,000. So this is kind of just par for the course for someone like me, because they've already started establishing a pattern at this point. I mean, I know over at Warner Brothers, they haven't really done much in the ways of layoffs, but they have let a lot of contracts expire and they haven't renewed them, which means that those people are no longer working or will be working for Warner Brothers in the coming weeks and months ahead. And Paramount is cutting budgets, but they haven't technically done any layoffs that I know of yet, because they've got the new acquisition and the Skydance is going to be taking over. So I do know that they're cutting funding for their streaming shows. They want them to be more cost effective. And as far as I can tell, those are the only three that have some issues with regards to staffing and readjusting their budgets for this year and next.
I've been paying too close attention to TKO because as a fan of 30 years nearly of the WWE content, I've been, I won't say offended, but I've watched it go from it's okay to, well, now we're going to make it bad and we're going to charge you through the nose. And it just feels like everything they do, it's like before you could go to a show, a couple $100, it was a good time. Now it's like 20 grand to sit on the floor, 40 grand if you want to sit ringside. That's not an exaggeration. I'm pissed off too. I opened up a poster I bought from them years ago, and I opened it up and it's the wrong fucking poster, and they're not responding to my emails. I bought The Rock and Stone Cold. They gave me Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle. Great match, not what I paid $50 for. So
wow.
They've been outsourcing. They used to have their own company. Then Fan Addicts took over, and it's just everything got too corporatized. And I feel like how people feel about certain Disney things. So let's talk about a little more of this, though. In terms of Disney and their financial apocalypse, they lost another 700,000 subscribers in Q1 of 2025 for Disney Plus, despite a 5% revenue increase. Now, I keep it for tax reasons. It's a business expense we can use. But I think streaming is so inconvenient that I'm going backwards in many ways. Like, I turn on TV, like I'll watch Pluto streaming and sit through commercials because, well, they somehow have more shows that I want to watch on Pluto or Tubi than the things that I pay $20 a month for. Like, have you guys had that same issue? Or is it more of a, maybe it's just a me thing?
Not really. I don't. So I guess streaming is an interesting thing for me because I got in on a lot of the streaming services when like they were more reasonably priced, right? And then just kept them because for whatever reason, when I see my monthly billing, it doesn't go up, even though I know that the prices have gone up, and I don't use the services very much. Like I'll use Max sometimes, but for like two things. Like if I want to not put in my Godzilla Blu-rays and just watch it on my TV, I'll do that. Otherwise, streaming is something that I think has been a net negative on film.
I agree
general.
with that. Well, it inherently changes the way things are made, and we can use the new Stranger Things trailer. The way they get released, it's been like 84 years since the last season of Stranger Things has come out. Like those kids have died, and they're using CGI replacements. That's a joke, but no, like it takes forever for these things to come out because they're so prohibitively expensive, and you don't really feel the hype. You don't really feel the connection. I know, like Andor comes out and it's a blip, and if you miss, like, there's no conversation about it, and except for the small corners of the internet, and maybe you watch it a year later and nobody's talking about it anymore, and you're just like, okay, I'm on my own island. Entertainment is supposed to be a shared event. There's nothing better.
Well, remember when? Sorry. Remember when Game of Thrones was just airing on the HBO network, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was this big conversation. I wasn't watching it at the time, but it was every single week was a big event. Like my coworkers and employees were always talking about it. My friends were always talking about it because they were all watching it. I was the black sheep. I wasn't. But then you compare that and contrast that with, say, House of the Dragon, which when it initially drops, people were talking about it and mostly positive things, but then 2-3 weeks go by and then kind of silence, right? There's that. So much of it dropping at once has killed the legs in terms of engagement and in terms of things being a popular conversation, because they at one point were more stretched out. It was delayed gratification, right? You had to wait another week. When I was watching Smallville, I had to wait a week, right? When I was watching The Flash and Arrow for the first couple of seasons before they turned to dog water, I was anticipating that next episode. But now with streaming services, and so many of them, they just drop large portions of seasons, if not entire seasons, and people just binge them in a week, and then maybe they'll talk about it on the weekend, and then that's it.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but it was so much more fun, the anticipation. Like, literally,
it was.
I remember Breaking Bad's finale. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, that final season, I was pumped. And you finally get to it, and it pays off. Like, I hate when everything's there at once, because you're like, let's just steamroll through this show. And then it's over. And thankfully, like, The Righteous Gemstones, I caught that before the 4th season was too far along. And so I had to wait for a couple of the final episodes. And I was so into it. It was such a great experience. Entertainment is supposed to make you feel something, either happiness, sadness, anticipation, anxiety, you name it. It's supposed to run the gamut. I feel bored sitting through so many things. It's like watching The Simpsons nowadays. You're just like, oh, it's this one, it's that one. It's background noise. Everything has become white noise and entertainment. And I want that to change. And real quick, before I go any further to the question of the chat, it was many divisions that were affected. The TV staff in Los Angeles, news and Disney Entertainment Networks. There's been consolidation from Hulu and ABC Originals. That's from a previous event. And there were 140 Pixar earlier. So this isn't just, 1 or 2 departments. It's also focusing on marketing, publicity, casting, development, and corporate finance teams per variety. So it's kind of hitting everybody. And on top of that, we're coming into a year where their movies, they're not the king of 2025.
No.
Whoever released...
They haven't been the king of the box office for a few years.
Last year was garbage. 2 years ago. 2023 was a bloodbath. Indiana Jones, The Marvels, the Secret Invasion show on Disney Plus that nobody watched. There were so many
I forgot
of these
that came out.
Exactly. Exactly, dude. Script. Who made the Minecraft movie? Was that Paramount?
Nope, that was Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers. Okay, yeah, Warner Brothers.
Oh, Warner
they had-
needed that win.
Actually, Warner's been having way more wins than losses. Like their biggest loss was Joker Folie à Deux, followed by Mickey 17. That's it. Everything
I
else
wanted
has
to watch
made a
that.
ton of cash. They officially have the crown of Hollywood right now. They've stolen it from Disney. They have the least debt out of all the studios in Hollywood. Although, funnily enough, the stockholders' vote was to deny bonuses for top executives like Zaslav and a bunch of others at Warner
I saw
Brothers,
that.
which is a great move because that money should be invested back into the studio to keep making higher quality content, especially now that they've returned Max to the proper brand name of HBO Max.
Yeah.
Like,
How many
let's
times in the last 2 years did that thing change names? Like, what, 3?
went from it's always been HBO, but then
Yeah.
they had subsidiary access points like HBO Go, then HBO Max, then they got rid of HBO Go, and then they just had HBO Max, then it went to Max, and now it's back to HBO Max.
That's so dumb and confusing. It's not necessary.
And we're not sponsored by Warner Brothers here, but I gotta say that's the streaming service that I find the most content to watch on. Like,
Yeah.
because I'm going to be completely transparent when the new Superman movie comes out. I'll give an honest review, but I'm in Superman mode for the first time in many years. It feels like Superman's going to return. So I've been watching the cartoon, some Justice League stuff. I'm happy with it, you know. And so I hope that they can continue to entertain me with this new Superman movie, and hopefully that takes out the Fantastic Four, because I don't like what I've seen. And the new merchandise has shed light on what's coming. And I don't really want to watch baby Franklin Richards like fighting alongside the Fantastic Four. That just doesn't... I have no problems with kids in real life, but I don't want to watch movies where kids are like in the middle of a battle for life and death. It takes me out. It ruins the stakes, because it's like, oh, okay, this kid's going to help fight off a robot. Even if it's a child prodigy, I don't give a shit. You should have told a story before she got pregnant. That should have been for the sequel.
Well, what's shocking is that based on the trailers, this Fantastic Four First Steps film looks like it takes place over the course of many years, which is always a bad idea to extend your running time, your scenes setup of a running time for a film. Usually, a week or a day is sweet spot, like the craziness of one day. Like James Bond's missions are usually about a week, maybe 10 days in length overall. And it's paced well enough that you actually understand the adventure, because there's travel time, there's going to new locations, there's research, there's seductions of women. The moment you start making a movie take place over the course of many months or years is the moment you lose momentum, because one of the key things about a great story is that you give it a sense of urgency. And the urgency has to be, of course, equal to the goals of the characters. But if you have a movie that's going to take place over several years, there is no urgency, because it's so far away within the framework of the characters that you as the audience member are like, yeah, I'm just going to kick back and not even be on the edge of my seat when they're trying to tell me to, because they just said, oh, there's a meteor coming to Earth and it'll be here in 7 years. And so we have to wait in the story 7 years. It's kind of like the movie Juno, where the first 5 minutes she gets pregnant, she decides, oh, I'm going to have the kid. And then we have to wait 9 months worth of terrible story before she has that kid.
That was horrible. I saw it on a date. That was just bad.
And I swear a couple of the scenes were ripped off of other movies, like especially the whole like jumping naked into the fountain pool of the mall and then screaming some sort of bloody murder thing. I've heard that story before in another movie. I'm certain of it. Just can't remember. And I've seen far too many movies than I care to admit. So things do get blurred together.
There's no shame in having watched countless movies. I'll go from the artsiest of the Criterion Collection to the schlockiest shit of any decade. I've watched more Ed Wood movies than I've never even seen the movie Ed Wood all the way through, but I've seen Ed Wood movies, so I'll watch anything. Never be ashamed of that. I don't know why so many people praise Juno either, Sly. It's one of the little movie that could, is what they called it back in the day.
It was a dumb generational thing for some reason, and I don't know why. It was when were we in middle school or high school?
We were in college when that movie came out.
You should have been in college
Were
when
we?
that came out, because that was
freshman
one
year.
of Jason Reitman's first films, but not his best one. And it was with Diablo Cody, who wrote it. Diablo Cody was a stripper for like a decade and a half before she started screenwriting. And you can guess how she managed to get her script into the hands of somebody who's definitely on the pole. And And she had just quirky, irreverent dialogue that was very refreshing. But when you looked past the dialogue, you saw that the stories were really boring and mundane. And I think the edgiest thing she wrote was this movie with Charlize Theron, where it's basically it's a Fight Club thing where she hires a nanny, but it's not really her. It's not really a nanny. It's just her and another personality.
Mm.
And it's supposed to be a gimmick, but like, I was very bored.
I like Charlize Theron. I don't remember that movie.
Reindeer Games was the first movie I ever saw her in. Not the last, but I always say Charlize Theron is my favorite African American, and it usually makes people raise their eyebrows. They're like, "What'd you say?" I'm like, "Hey,
Yeah.
she's an African American.
She is.
Discriminate on this channel."
Yep.
So we've been talking about the quality of content, and per this Variety article that we've been talking about that had the information, it says it basically infers that Disney's focus on high quality content for streaming and reducing the output is hurting them. Which I don't think they've really increased the quality.
Yeah, what
Like,
quality
it might
are
be
they
more
talking
expensive.
about? Because that metric
Yeah.
is like, I'll say this, with even though by comparison to other Marvel shows, Daredevil had poorer ratings, Daredevil was actually pretty well made considering the fact that they had to integrate a whole other narration of a season into a reshoot to make that first 8 episodes comprehensible. And I also like the fact that they actually made fun of the girl boss attitude with his girlfriend, who thinks that she saved herself because she is being delusional because Matt Murdock knows what really happened, and he's just kind of humoring her to a degree. And I'm like,
Good old
yeah,
Karen.
that's exactly the commentary that we have against people who talk about girl bosses that are terribly written into serviceable characters. And we're just like, yeah, sure. Okay. Right. Keep living that
Whatever
lie.
you say.
Yeah.
Girl bosses and black girl magic are two of my least favorite tropes. Like,
And yet I really want a comedy called Black Girl Magic, but I don't think I'd be allowed to write it because of how white I am.
I can write it. Let's work on it together. I'll protect you. I'll be the shield man. You know.
Yeah, that's exactly
Anybody-
what I need. I got to stand behind a black man to protect me from all
Hey,
this.
I'm 6'5". You could hide quite well behind me. I'm broad too, so don't worry. No one's gonna get to you. They're just gonna be like, "Hey, why'd you write that?" Because it's funny.
Because it's
you know.
very funny. Because
Yeah.
we're making fun of all the movies that use that term in the most offensive ways possible and showing why it's a terrible idea to do that.
Any kind of character that has to self-aggrandize. It's like my favorite wrestling quote. I think Triple H said it. You know, maybe if you keep telling yourself how great you are, maybe even you'll believe it. Like, these characters always feel insecure and hollow to a fault. And the hollowness is what I get from a lot of streaming content. I don't get these endearing characters. I don't get these... Like, you go back and watch a sitcom from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there's a lot of heart to these characters. Even somebody like Archie Bunker, who has, some terrible traits, there's still moments where you're like, okay, like they got those special episodes. Same thing with Cheers or Frasier, any of those shows. Like, there's some heart to it. And you relate to the characters, you like them, they're endearing for some reason or the other.
Frasier's hysterical.
Frasier is hysterical. But if you want to make fun of some good black girl magic, Touched by an Angel is the way to go for your foundations.
Touched by an Angel is one of the shittiest shows ever. Like, I said it in a video this past week, folks. Check it out. The 90s renaissance of religious shows. Touched by an Angel, Seventh Heaven, and Promised Land. Those shows all suck. Because I went to Catholic school, and we all made fun of those shows. It'd be like I went to a Catholic school where it wasn't like super religious-y. Like, they taught us evolution, and Planned Parenthood came in, and all that shit. It was very, like, chill. There was only one nun on staff. So we were pretty much like a private school that was like a Catholic school. But long story short, my grandma would watch these shows. Aunts and uncles would watch these shows. I only would watch them because it was an excuse to stay up late on a school night. It's like, oh, Touched by an Angel's on at 9. Can I watch it? We're talking about this in class. I just wanted to stay up. I didn't want to go to bed at 8:30. But man, as somebody that like had to sit through church and sit through these lessons and stuff, those shows made me roll my eyes so hard. And you go back and you look at them, and they're so cheesy and so shit. And Della Reese is, I assume who you're talking about, is the black girl magic. Like, she's like an angel, but she's like an angel boss. and the other lady who's kind of sexy is, you know, the main angel.
Yep.
We had some shit. Like, everybody that's nostalgic about the 90s, go back and watch this shit. Don't go like, oh, it was all Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and, you know, Friends reruns. Friends sucks.
Oh no, there was I think it was ABC did some of those shows, if I'm not mistaken.
The religious ones?
Yeah.
They were on CBS.
CBS. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
The Catholic Broadcast Network.
That's right.
I'm sorry. But they're
No.
just so dumb.
No, you're very right. They really did try to lean into that Midwestern demographic area. And it was that, and then the counter to it was, of course, Walker, Texas Ranger. That was huge.
That show
And
kicked
then
ass.
Martial Law, the spin-off to that. I remember that show, which was funny.
With
'Cause I'm like,
Arsenio
why
Hall
is
in
this
the later
fat Asian
seasons?
guy so good at karate? How is that possible?
Dude, Sammo Hung, I didn't know who Sammo Hung was until that show. I've gone back to look at his filmography. That dude has kicked ass for decades. Like,
Yeah.
Sammo Hung gets a thumbs up from me. I forgot about Martial Law, though. It
I
was
will
like
say
Rush
this,
Hour
those-
before Rush Hour.
Those shows, Seventh Heaven, Promised Land, Touched by an Angel, they are as bad as some of those movies turned into TV shows. Like Rush Hour was turned into a TV show for a season. That was pretty horrible.
Oh, that's right. It was.
Lethal Weapon
never
was
saw
turned
it.
into a TV show for 3 seasons. That was painful.
I had seen more of the Lethal Weapon TV show than I'm willing to admit, and I didn't like it, but it was something that was on. I'm just like, all right, let's see what Riggs and Murtaugh are up to this week, and then they never really showed up because Mel Gibson
There was
and Danny
Keisha
Glover.
Sharp was on there. She was Murtaugh's wife, and I wanted to see her in a show with Tom Lennon because his version of Leo Getz is just this guy that he's not a lawyer, but he's just kind of a skeevy guy. They had such good chemistry. I'm like, those two need to be in a show together. They're like, screw this Lethal Weapon stuff. Just make an original show with those two actors. They have great chemistry. Great. They're great, like straight man and the clown characters. And I would love to have seen them in something.
What could have been, man? Now, in regards to this Disney topic we're covering, what do you think? It's not like they're going out of business anytime soon. But what do you think is going to be their balancing point?
Don't kid yourselves into thinking that. That's for sure.
I don't even think I want them to anymore. I hated the Star Wars movies that they put out, and I just don't watch their content. Like, honestly, it's more of like, oh, here we go. They just buy everything I happen to like, and so you're kind of stuck with them. It's like, oh, I want to watch King of the Hill and Hulu. Well, they own Hulu now, so shit, Hank Hill lives next to Mickey Mouse. But I don't know what they're going to be doing in the future. I mean, what else could they buy? I feel like all the big IPs are owned already. You know, Warner Brothers has Harry Potter in the bag. I mean, they're trying to dust off Tron this summer, or maybe it's this fall. Like, I don't think Disney has a lot outside of Marvel.
Kind of cool.
It did. Hopefully the music's as good as the last one.
9 Inch
Music-
Nails, not a bad start for tone.
Yeah.
Daft Punk did a great job.
God,
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that I saw that in IMAX with my dad.
Same.
Yep.
And we were both just kind of like, whoa.
Dude, I became lifelong friends with somebody over that movie.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, I lived with Dion for a short period of time, and there was another guy that lived there named Jake, and we were, like, friendly enough, but we were just, like, it was always, like, an arm's length, like, I don't know this dude that well. And then we were all going to go see Tron, and everybody backed out, and he's like, I kind of still want to see Tron. I'm like, me too. And so we went and saw this movie, and we were blown away by it, and then, I mean, shit, we've been friends for, like, 15 years now at this point.
That's
like,
all
Tron
it takes
Legacy.
to break
That's
down a
awesome.
barrier like that. It's one great movie or one great event.
Yeah, we still talk about it. Like, I went to his wedding a few years back in Colorado, and I'm like, yeah, man, when we saw Tron, that was the shit. He's like, yeah, dude, I watched that not that long ago. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, but see, that's what I talk about, folks. That's why I'm passionate about entertainment and will critique it and lambaste it when I think it's garbage, because it's done so much good. It's brought so much joy, not just me, but to millions of people out there. And for generations, it ties generations together. And it's sad to see when, you know, it just becomes all about paint by numbers, profit and loss. I get it, business. I don't really need to keep repeating myself, but there are ways to make money off good properties and good projects. It doesn't have to suck. That's just a choice. They go lazy. They get the right people, but they're really the wrong people. Like J.J. Abrams, the less I see of him, the better, as I currently watch his new show. I had seen in the chat they're even downsizing Marvel. I always have sympathy for the artists at Marvel. The writers, you kind of put yourself in this hole. The editors, it's your fault, but we leave the writers alone here. Have you heard about this, Andrew? About Marvel's getting downsized?
In terms of like their publishing, like Marvel Comics, rather than the MCU, so Marvel
Yeah.
Studios. It doesn't shock me, at the very least. I hadn't heard that, but it doesn't shock me because as somebody who does go to their LCS every single Wednesday, you have to wade through a lot of meh and bleh to get to some genuine gems. There aren't many of them, but there are some. But you have to wade through a lot of muck in order to get to them. And if you're going to continue to put out mostly meh, that's not going to sell well, it's going to stay on the shelves, like you're wasting money, right? You're spending money that you're not making back. The comic book industry's economy is already kind of weird to begin with. Like there's not actually much profit margin in there to begin with, considering how many hands things have to pass through
Unless you can
before
do it
you
all
see
by
anything
yourself.
on net, right? Like what you do. You know?
It just takes
So-
forever this way.
Yes, it does. It does, absolutely. It's hard. Making comic books is not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but
It's a passion.
you
not
have to
fun
love it.
at
If you're going to
times.
do it, you have to do it and love it, right? But this doesn't shock me. I mean, there are a lot of people that honestly should be losing their jobs at Marvel Comics, considering how bad a lot of the books are. Again, some of the books are actually very good, but it's a handful in a pool of meh and bleh, and nobody's heard of or cares.
And the thing that blows my mind is it's just an American problem because around the world, comic books are considered high art. They pay better. Those French albums that they put out, like
Oh,
these
yeah.
artists put out like one
Dude,
big
those
book
do
a year.
so well.
Oh, the French market is crazy. Like it's so enviable to the United States at this point.
I think I'm gonna lie and say I'm from Canada and try to promote my books in France one day. It's like
As long
I'm
as you
from
say you're
Ottawa.
not from Quebec, you should actually do pretty well.
I'll have you and I will sit down one day, script. I'm like, help me create a fictional Canadian life, and then I will use that in my letters to France, so people won't think I'm some American. Italy's
I mean,
got
well,
great
but
comics.
There's a
I
lot of
know.
periods in French where they actually don't have any real bias towards Americans. Like, what's kind of fascinating is that if you manage to pull off a product that they like before they learn who you are, they'll accept you because you've hit their zeitgeist. It means that you're cultured.
Well, I should try that because I love their food. I love their art. Their movies aren't my cup of tea because they're just a little too avant-garde.
They're really hot
Aesthetic.
women are very easy.
That's also what I'm a fan of. I just wasn't going to say that. Thank you, Sophie Marceau. I haven't met her, but but that's the thing that just bothers me. Like we talk about that here in this country, like it gets politicized, and I understand why because the writers have politicized this stuff. But it's just here that it sucks, and there's so many hungry people here. Basically because of population, but the people here are so hungry for it too, and we're stuck in this cycle of a couple of genres, deconstruction, or a few weird things here and there. And I think like if Marvel and DC could figure out a way to be a little more universal without alienating, well, they already alienated this audience, so find a way to be universal. Batman should sell in France. Batman should sell in Japan. It's cool. He's cool. It's Batman. But for some reason, little kids that are pirates that can stretch like Mr. Fantastic outsell our comic books like 100 to 1.
Well,
And I want to make a
a
note on that too, because I understand that even here in the West, One Piece is a huge thing. Like it's massive, and it's been going on for ages. I can respect and appreciate what it's brought to entertainment, what it's brought to the medium of manga and anime and all that. I have no interest in it because I think a lot of the character designs, especially the lead character, Luffy, are dumb. I don't like it. It doesn't appeal to me, right? That's a personal thing. That's a subjective thing. There are
Same thing,
plenty of
dude.
people that's like their favorite anime, their favorite shonen. Cool. I am so thrilled for you. That's awesome. I knew people, though there were few of them, who thought I was stupid for liking Dragon Ball when I was a kid. Fair enough, right? Different strokes for different folks. But to that point, Jeff, in Japan, they are far more interested in those things than our stuff. You'll see pockets of people who do like, our Western, heroes and things like that. But for the most part, they're fairly insular and love their stuff, their culture, their entertainment, their media. And it comes down to the writing. It comes down to the characters and how they latch onto them. They really latch onto those characters. It has very little to do with whether or not they think the character design is just cool on its face. Sure, there are plenty of animes and mangas that have really great, like, to me, like, super cool designs for everything. But there are a bunch that are super popular where, at least me, as an outsider, I scratch my head like, man, that's that big? Because I'm not jiving with it.
Well, it's big because they're pumped out like a factory. The other part too is that the writing hits all the basic core tenets, but it's super deep until you get into like year 5 or 6, where they finally realized, oh, this is their stride here. Like, this is a sweet spot. Everything that we've done, that we've experimented with, we can now pull together to create something of something deeper and fun. Or you go into the reverse part where you pump out so much Dragon Ball that you've lost the plot for years and years. But when it comes to something like One Piece, when I first learned what it was like 10 years into the series. And when I read a couple of interviews about the creator, he says he hasn't figured out what the One Piece is. So he's writing without a direction. And I'm like, well, that's a disservice to your audience, because you now have to have the hardest obligation of trying to stick that landing, because you didn't have a target when you began your premise. And that ends up being the case with a lot of manga, and they just keep going until they get lucky and realize, oh, this is where we have to end it. And that works out well, through happenstance. But you can't, because that industry, because those artists and writers are so terribly paid, and they pump out that stuff like within days, if not like, if they have a vacation, they pump it out in a couple of weeks. But like on this side of the Pacific, you can't do that. Like you can't just like throw caution to the wind, experiment, and tell a story without a direction, and then hope that that people will latch onto it and hold on to it tightly, so that you can kind of figure your way towards an ending. And then when you do, you end that book, and then you have to realize, I can never go back to this franchise again, because it'll just taint it. So I have to come up with something brand new. And that's one of the things I appreciate with manga, is that once the series done, it's done. And with the exception of Dragon Ball, but I think that's done now because the creator passed away.
There are a few exceptions to that, and they usually end up being like the larger shonen properties like Dragon Ball, right? Then they did GT, and then GT didn't do well. Then they did Super still kind of going. I think Bleach has a final movie coming out or something like that. Naruto wound up being one of the few rare instances that had a full-on sequel series that deals with telling the stories of the kids, the offspring of the main cast from the main Naruto series, which was annoying to me, because everything that I've seen is they do the stupid writing trope where it's in order to make it feel like the threats are real, they wind up dumbing down the powers of all the heroes that we just spent a decade or whatever following, in order to elevate the kids, and then they give the kids new powers on top of that. And it's like, well, why did I spend all this time over here then? Thanks for just kind of like wiping that out for no real reason whatsoever, when you have even less cool characters that you're telling the story through. But yes, for the most part, for mangas and anime, they tell the story and then it's done. They're going to move on to the next thing. And so you have a lot of mangaka that are kind of one-hit wonders, where it's like they'll have one IP that it was like a big deal, right? And then that's it. Nothing else after that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's better to have that than not.
Than nothing, that's for sure.
I never really gravitate towards this stuff. When I was younger and it was starting to come out in America, Okay, let me rephrase that because it was out in America in the 80s. I am aware. I've been doing a lot of research on this for certain projects I'm working on. See, folks, I can do regular superhero stuff, but I'm working on developing something that has like global appeal. And I figure, besides the writing part, there's a design element that's really important. And so I've been paying attention and reading like research. I know it sounds boring. It's like college to why people gravitate towards some of these characters, like the designs, the faces, the certain things like that, and creating that and working on that in the background. But the thing that I always have trouble with is like some of these popular manga characters are just so, I don't want to say lame because it's not the right word, but they're very insecure, kind of, and I don't want to say effeminate because that's not the right word, but they're very like meek. That's the word I'm looking for. Some of these characters are very meek, and I don't relate to meek characters. I can't like outside of Spider-Man, but I like him because he was like, well, one of his parents were dead, and he was the smart kid in school, and I could relate to that kind of stuff. But like this, I don't know, the kiddie characters and the stuff like that and the cutesy stuff always turns me off of manga. It's the weirder shit or the more action oriented that hooks me, but that's always the most generic stuff that doesn't really catch on in America. I see people in the chat shitting on Naruto. I haven't really sat through it. It's not really a thing I can get into. Like what was the one? Yu Yu Hakusho. I watched that. That's all right. That's pretty.
Yeah, I
solid.
remember Yu Yu Hakusho. Yeah,
but I'm a Lupin the Third guy. That's where my favorite stuff is. That show. Now, do you think Disney will ever get desperate enough to buy or silly enough to buy a big manga franchise and try to cash in on it?
I mean, they bought Power Rangers back in the day and tried to cash in on it.
Can you believe that's coming out again in a few weeks?
A new one?
It's Mighty Morphin upscaled in 4K, and they have a new toy line to go with it.
Well, that's not going to work because even the original Sentai stuff they did was only shot on 16 mil, I think.
Yeah. So a couple
that.
years back, they remastered the 16 millimeter footage, and it looks significantly better than what it was aired on, or than what would air in the 1990s. Excuse me, but like, it doesn't look good. They've released footage of it, and it's barely noticeable. I'm like, this is where I get pissed off. It's like the world's shittiest cash grab. It's like, hey, it's all new. It's remastered. It's reignited. The power's back. It's for your kids. No kid wants to watch this shit. Kids got their own things they want to do. It's for adults that want to try to get their kids into it so they can have some kind of, shared experience, or it's for dudes that want to go out and rebuy the toys, or that audience that's like, I love all Sentai. I'm going to get this. And it's another flop in the making. Like, wait for the Ollie's videos in the future, folks. We're going to go to the Ollie's and hey, it's the Red Ranger, it's the Green Ranger, it's the Dragon Zord for $3. Then maybe I'll bite again. But I foresee that being a big old flop too, because originality, it's just not really appreciated. And yes, Matt, it did look like shit when it aired 32 years ago. That show's old. I'm old. Fuck. So let me look at more of my Disney notes so we keep people coming in here. Welcome to everybody. Hit that thumbs up button. Not to harp on it, but do you think Disney has anything that they could put on streaming that'll get the 700,000 people back? Is there anything that's gonna, like, I'm guessing like a Spider-Man television show, possibly. Like if they did live action.
Did that last one do it?
No, if they renewed Spectacular Spider-Man with new episodes with the same writing team, that wouldn't get the 7,000 hires back. That'd probably get like 200 people.
I mean, sign me up though. Like, I would work. I'd love to have the Spectacular Spider-Man come back. That was the shit.
Yeah,
that show was
that
and Earth's Mightiest Heroes
way
were
better than
best.
we deserved.
Yeah, I want to caution people into celebrating too early that this is, they're getting rid of people because of DEI decision making and things like that. This is honestly, and obviously Script can correct me if I'm wrong, because this is, the TV and film industry, and therefore it's more specific to his knowledge base. But it is pretty regular that a lot of big companies will, to some degree or another, varying degrees, go through cuts and layoffs. As somebody who worked for GameStop for 15 years, like, people would always come in like, are you guys going out of business? whenever, there'd be news of, GameStop closed down X number of stores, right? They were consolidating stores that they had multiple ones super close to each other. And I'm no fan of GameStop, make no mistake, but they would often have stores that were super close to each other where it's like, why don't we just like stop paying the lease on these other locations and consolidate inventory and customer base into one location? They would do that to cut costs. They would do the same thing in terms of just laying people off in general. A lot of companies do this. We've heard this. How many times have we heard Disney's cutting employees, Warner's cutting employees, all of these companies, right, that we've criticized for years, justifiably so, that, they're going through these huge cuts and layoffs and things like that. The companies still aren't going anywhere. They're still here. And I don't think it would be wise for us to jump to celebratory attitudes when it comes to, just because we see, so it's people getting cut from their TV and film division, people getting cut from casting and things like that. Okay, hopefully that does mean something positive, that maybe they are culling some of the chaff, right? That'd be great. That would be my hope. I'm not going to hold my breath. I can rock a purple t-shirt. I probably can't rock purple skin, so I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well, I think in this case, they're cutting some redundancies that they've been able to identify. But one thing you have to remember is that, so Disney is, okay, here's a modern day equivalent. Disney is a trans studio. Like, they identify as a studio, but they're not. They're actually a parks and recreational outdoor mall company. But they call themselves a studio, and they make commercials, very expensive, $300 million, 90-minute to 3-hour commercials to get people to go to their parks and buy stuff that you can buy at a mall, but, it's got a Disney brand logo on it. That's what Disney is. They are the Leah Thomas of film. So this them cutting back.
The Leah Thomas of film.
Yeah. So them cutting back, like, again, Disney expanded huge when they were making $1 billion of gross on their Marvel films for 10 straight years. So they were expanding and inflating their studio side and their park side at great levels. And now that they're not bringing in that return, they need to tighten their belts. And this goes back to what I said earlier. Like, Disney doesn't technically lose monies on the movies they make. They lose the profit margin. Like, they're always making profit when a movie hits theaters because it's always hitting theaters in the black. Someone else has paid for it. They've given Disney money to do so. And part
all
of
those pre-sales and all of that you talk about.
Exactly. They collect that money with the ticket sales up until it's paid off, which is how you get to that whole Disney needs to clear X amount of dollars before they see a profit. That's when their part of the profit actually starts to come in. But if it doesn't hit that, Disney doesn't lose any money, because the terms of the pre-sale risk is that, if it doesn't perform, then sorry, you're out of luck. You don't get your money back on the theatrical side. But if we start selling it in first, second, third windows of distributions, that's when you'll start getting your cash flow in. And guess what? Once that cash flow is paid off, everything else after that is profit for Disney. And while it will be smaller numbers in comparison to how fast box office return is, they can make money off of that bomb of a film for the next 100 years, so long as people are like curious enough to download it or stream it or watch it on a site that has commercial ads. They're going to make money off it, or whoever ends up holding the rights to it will make money off of it. Right now, when it comes to Disney, the fact that they're not making money off their Disney Plus channel is precisely because they modeled it after Netflix as opposed to modeling it after a network. Like, they should have modeled it as ABC. You go online, it's all ABC programming with prestige Disney shows, and it all has commercial ads, and companies that advertise crap that you don't need would be on a bidding war with Disney to get their commercial playing in the segments that are allotted so that they can get the most eyes on their product. And Disney didn't do it that way. Neither did Warner Brothers, neither did Paramount Plus, formerly CBS All Access. Peacock did it that way, but Peacock's biggest flaw is NBC has been really terrible with making new television shows people want to see since 2017.
What was that 2017 show script?
I think the last one was Parks and Rec. Actually, like that was the last show that people would actually watch because everything that new that came out after that, especially after 30 Rock, which was one of their highest rated shows in the 21st century, after The Office, obviously, once those were done, nobody was watching NBC anymore, and all the new comedies they were trying to put out, trying to get people back in on Thursday nights, just was not working. The only new show they have released recently that I think has any potential that's quite charming and a throwback is St. Denis Medical, because it's got a good cast. It's got David Alan Grier in it, and he's great doctor. It's got some goofy guys. It's got this one character who he may have come from a highly religious and xenophobic cult, and this is the first time in the real world, and he's a nurse, and all of his past is causing him to be a fish out of water in a place where he should be really comfortable because he's gone to school for this stuff. It's a solid show, but it's also struggling in the ratings because even though it's one of the highest rating ones on NBC right now, just because nobody's had any interest in watching NBC programming for a decade. And that was a channel, like even on Peacock, that was a channel that managed to appeal to a woke audience while at the same time mocking it like relentlessly. Especially if you watch the Saved by the Bell reboot, they really made fun of a woke character that was a transgender, and it was really funny. Like, she thought she could solve all the world's problems because she was transgender, and then learning that she couldn't was hysterical.
I missed that reboot or revival completely. Like,
yeah, I didn't even watch much Saved by the Bell growing up, but my girlfriend did. And she had to explain some of the jokes to me. The only joke I got was the one with Elizabeth Berkley talking about how she had a crazy summer where she decided to go to Las Vegas and become a showgirl. And
that's good.
She lost her mind and she pushed a woman down the stairs. I'm like, I got that because that's brilliant. And
unlike the movie,
the movie is. There's a lot of good to it, but it's a lot of like soap opera-y drama at the same time. You're like, I don't know what's going on with Esther Haas here, but
we'd watch it in college just to laugh.
Yep.
Was that Paul Verhoeven that made that?
I think Paul Verhoeven and Joe Esterhaus. I think I can't remember all the details of that film. I only usually watch it every once in a long while, but I'm like, I need to see something stupid and funny.
I just think back, when I think of Showgirls, I think of an episode of Step by Step where the kid snuck out to go see Showgirls in theaters. Like, that was like the plot point.
Yeah, didn't he try to get his dad to write a permission slip for him to go see it?
That show was like fourth tier Miller Boyette. Like, Family Matters and Perfect Strangers were the shit.
Yep.
And they kept going down, and then you get to Step by Step, and
which was just Brady Bunch.
Yeah, 90s Brady Bunch. With
Suzanne Summers.
Yeah, Patrick Duffy. It was a fine enough show that would capture my attention. Like, on those days where I'm like, I don't really want to do anything, so I'd watch Step by Step.
I think they had a repurposed set from Who's the Boss in that one. Because the living room format looks pretty similar. Like, they just redressed it and shifted some stairs.
As long as they didn't borrow from Growing Pains. I did not like that show.
No. Growing Pains was tough to get through. What's funny is there was a Harry Anderson show where the set of his house was, I think, eventually used for Everyone Loves Raymond, and they didn't even bother changing it.
He was good. I liked him in...
he was great in Cheers.
Yeah. I like him
Night Court. Night Court, he was fantastic in. Night
Court's my shit.
Night Court's a show that it was such a good comedy. They had some episodes that could really make you cry for all the right reasons. And the sequel series is terrible on NBC.
There we go. We're back to that problem. I think a lot of times
a lot of revival shows don't do as well. You know,
I hope
Roseanne, the first season of the revival show was actually really good, but then of course they fired Roseanne.
I was watching it too when she was on it, and I didn't even like Roseanne back in the day.
I was watching the I was still with my ex at the time, but I was watching when the remake of The Odd Couple.
Oh yeah, with Tom Lennon and Matthew Perry.
And that was actually really funny.
Yes, that show,
I quite enjoyed that. I think we saw the whole first season.
It lasted for I think 2.5 or 3 seasons, and here's the tragedy. So the only reason that show got on the air is because of Gary Marshall made the original Odd Couple adaptation from the movie, which is from the Broadway show. When Gary Marshall passed away, that show got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
It had good ratings, everything was fine, but it got canceled. Why? People at the network didn't want to keep it going anymore.
That's sad.
Yeah,
It was funny. I was
that,
genuinely enjoying it.
That cancellation, even though it was a good 5 or 6 years after that cancellation, Matthew Perry tragically passed away. But had that show kept going, he probably wouldn't have had the time to, be spending late evenings in his hot tub.
He was funny. Like, what was that? Fools Rush In? No, Grosse Point Blank. No, that's John Cusack shit.
No, John Cusack, Grosse Point Blank. He was in, he was in Fools Rush In, but he's in Whole Nine Yards.
That was the movie I really liked with him in it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a solid movie. I didn't watch the whole 10 Yards. You ever remember how, like, mobsters with, like, psychological issues was this, like, 90s thing that they were like, oh my god, it's so groundbreaking. That's what the plot of The Sopranos is, the whole 9 yards. It was just like a big thing at the end of the 90s.
Oh, well, I mean, I've heard the story of how The Sopranos was pitched. So the creator, he goes in, he's talking to the studio exec, says, yeah, I got to show up with this guy. He's dealing with his wife. He's got going to therapy. He can't really hold on to, like, the control of his job and his office and all that type of stuff. And everybody in the room is completely bored until he says, oh, yeah, and his job is that he's the head of a mafia family in Jersey. And then all of a sudden they're like, we want this. But
it is a good show. Like,
yeah, it is a really good show. The ending, I love the ending too. I know some people were so disappointed, but I totally got what it was and I loved it.
I drew Stealing Solo to The Sopranos. That was on in the background. That I did that whole kind of watched, but mostly listened to that whole series as I drew that book. That's why I always have a special place for that show. This time, nothing, because I don't want to try to watch TV and draw a comic at the same time. To the chat, yeah, I remember Family Matters and Full House. Watched way more Full House than I'm willing to admit, but I've seen a lot of it, almost all of it.
I watched a lot of both of those shows when I was growing up.
Family Matters has held up better.
I watched a ton of Family Matters, especially when Steve Urkel made the teleporter and they went to France. Never watched Full House. Before my current girlfriend, the girl I was dating beforehand, was really excited about the Netflix revival series. And I was like, oh, I've never seen an episode of Full House. And she's like, oh, I can't be dating someone that has never watched Full House. And I said, oh, I guess then we're broken up then. And she's like, I guess we are. And that is literally how that relationship ended. Like, I was making a joke. She was deadly serious.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I know, I'm single. But I was like, well, I'm flying back to Canada in a couple of weeks. So,
wow.
And nothing of value was lost.
No, single enough to get my current girlfriend. So, 5.5 years.
You're happy now.
Right now. It's pretty good.
Uncle Jesse saved you from a life of misery. Next time you meet John Stamos on the streets, because you do.
Uncle Jesse was the man.
He was cool. Bob Saget was not cool, but then you watch Bob Saget's real life shit, and you're like, oh wow,
yeah.
His stand up is significantly different from the role he played in Full House.
No, his clean role that he played on Full House, my understanding was that he was basically just doing Dave Coulier, who is the other guy. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Joey Gladstone.
Okay. Yeah, because Dave Coulier does a lot of clean comedy that's great for families, but it also appeals more to kids. And that's kind of what I guess the theme for Full House was. I remember there's the Olsen twins were on that, but they played one kid, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
right.
Michelle Tanner.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched it. Like I said, I watched it as a kid. I'd be like, "Oh, Full House is on, cool," and then it's over. But Urkel was the better show. That was the
Urkel
one I was
the
always
better
like, oh,
show. What it's also funny that you call it Urkel and everybody knows exactly what show you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's how we referred to it. As like everybody in my family was like, Urkel's on. So we're just watching Urkel. Like, we never called it Family Matters. It was Urkel. Like, to this day, I'm like, yeah, the Urkel episode with blah, 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 and they go to, Disney World. It's always Urkel, man. Like, he was the best. Carl Winslow was the best part of that show, but.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
but I would say the best 90s sitcom was, for me at least, The Fresh Prince, or because I don't count like The Simpsons or King of the Hill. They're animated
Fresh
shows.
Prince
They're in
was
their own category.
so freaking good.
Fresh Prince was great. I really liked Married with Children a lot.
Yeah, that was Al Bundy. See, we always call the show Al Bundy too. Like it was never like, oh, Married with Children's on. Like Al Bundy's on. Let's watch it. All right, cool. It's just a local thing, but those were all good shows. We didn't watch Everybody Loves Raymond. That show blew. I tried watching it.
You know what's tragic is that the guy who plays the brother, way
Brett
funnier.
Garrett?
Yeah. Oh god, he does some of the best. He did some improvised Lobo stuff at a con years ago because he voiced Lobo for Superman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
And he just got that character, and he knew how to do the comedy and how to do the badass actions of it. And I mean, now we're gonna get Jason Momoa. Is gonna probably give us at best a watered down version of that.
Did you know that Brad Garrett was also the voice of Hulk Hogan in the animated series?
Oh,
Yes. Oh my god, I do remember that because I remember that Hulk Hogan animated series.
Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling? Yeah, brother.
Because that was around the same time as Pro Stars. Remember Pro Stars, where Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, and
now I do.
Bo Jackson were superheroes on the
Bo knows. We had. See, I would rather live in an era where they'll make zany shit like that, and then they'll also make Batman the animated series. So it's like, yeah, you have the zany crap that nobody really likes, and it lasts for a season and sells a couple action figures. But then you have some of the best stuff of all time. It was a very interesting decade where we found, where they found the balance between high art and children's entertainment. And even as adults, people look back at like Batman and they're like, that show is really just a great show for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're 5 or 55. You get into that show, and it's got atmosphere. It's got great acting. It can be discussed like The Sopranos, or it could be discussed like any
serious show.
Yeah.
And then you have the MC Hammer cartoon where he's got magic shoes that was gifted to him from James Brown.
I don't have it here, but I have an MC Hammer doll in my collection. Like an actual, it's like a Mattel Barbie-sized MC Hammer. I had it since I was a kid. I don't know why. I never played with it, but I had MC Hammer. I have toys for everything. I need to put MC Hammer right next to Indiana Jones. Don't you think that's they're of equal status?
No.
I don't either.
I think it's funny because MC Hammer's got the song "Can't Touch This," and Indiana Jones, if he did, maybe a giant boulder would come crashing down on him.
Yeah. I should make that into one of those music videos. Just Indiana Jones, Can't Touch Us. I did like You Can't Touch Us. It's still it's a fun song for crazy, crazy weddings and parties. Yeah, now you're bringing me back to all these terrible. What we got to do for a bracket battle is we have to do like obscure '90s cartoons, like Life of Louie.
Life of Louie is a great cartoon.
That dad was the best character.
I love that dad character.
I like how we instantly go to the same point. The dad. Dude, most
I once liberated France wearing nothing but a colander. What joke is that?
It worked. You remember it 30 years later.
Yep.
I forgot Camp Candy was a show too.
Oh, I remember Camp Candy. Yeah, that was a funny one. And then, of course, Back to the Future cartoon show.
That's what
I do remember that.
Movies.
I do remember that.
I have on my shelf the animated series. The whole toy line was like 3 or 4 figures. They clearanced it out at a local comic book shop. I bought it all. They're shitty toys, but something to have. I remember Eek the Cat Overkill 161.
Oh, I watched Eek the Cat.
I remember Eek the Cat. I remember Rocko's Modern Life.
I remember
his job.
Was it Wally's World?
Bobby's World.
Bobby's World, that's the one. Yeah,
Bobby's World, right? Yeah. The Howie Mandel one.
Yep.
Script. What was Rocco's job in Rocco's Modern Life?
He worked at a comic book store.
No, he was a phone sex operator.
Oh, right.
Be kind, be courteous, be naughty. It's written on the wall behind him.
Right. No, he used to visit. Oh, wait, which was the guy, that character that worked at the comic book shop? Was it the turtle? No,
I think it was a turtle because I don't know where Heifer worked.
Heifer didn't work at all.
I don't think Heifer worked.
Family of wolves who you were always wondering when they're going to eat him.
He was Patrick before Patrick was a thing.
Yeah.
Freaking lazy bum unemployed friend.
I would rather watch
finding himself among nudists. I remember that was a big running joke in Rocko's Modern Life.
what were the drugs that these people were on to, one, make the show, and two, for the networks to run it? Like, Cow and Chicken was crazy. Like, there's an episode called Buffalo Gals where these chicks came in and ate the carpet in your house. Like, that was the joke. I'm like, what the fuck? I can't believe we watched this stuff.
Yep.
And the devil had a naked ass that he showed in every episode.
That was an era of, like, I'm fairly certain that all the people who were creating those cartoons for kids were either psychopaths or meth heads, because all of the cartoons were really freaking weird for the most part. Like the one of the more sane ones was Rocket Power, and I'm like, yeah, they're probably just some freaking Santa Cruz like potheads, and that's about as bad as it's gonna get.
It's
them.
a lot of pot, cocaine, and alcohol. Like, that's literally it. It's pot, cocaine, and alcohol. Because you wouldn't do meth.
Like
Cat
Cat Dog.
You wouldn't do meth or heroin because that would really screw you up. Like, because you couldn't type if you were on those either of those.
Yeah.
So, but cocaine you can type still. I've seen people do a line and then hit the keyboard, and then I just go to bed. When I wake up, they're kind of coming down.
They just bang out 116 pages in a night.
No, you read it, and it's like a 90-page script, and it's insane, and there's tons of spelling errors, but the idea is surreal. So, and you're like, this needs a couple of rewrites, but you've got something here, and I've never been brave enough to do that. I stuck to alcohol until I got to the age of 21, where I could no longer get drunk no matter how much I drank. I would just get alcohol poisoning.
All right, Captain America.
All right.
Captain America doesn't get alcohol poisoning.
He doesn't have to worry about that part either.
God, Super G. I used to watch that show in college. That was
I remember that one.
Together, Clone High. God.
Yeah.
Clone High sounds familiar. I don't think I watched it though.
The first season is great. Don't watch the revival. They lost the plot.
Do you remember a show called Undergrads that was on MTV? That was
Oh God,
2000s.
with Nitz and G.M.P.C and Cal and Rocco. Yes, the guy Pete Williams is actually making an Undergrads feature film. He's been working on it for years. He has a YouTube channel where he gives you updates because he's making it computer animated, but he's redoing it into 2D style so that he can. So it looks like it is traditional and it functions the way 2D animation did, because the 3D models makes it cheaper to render, but it's also incredibly time consuming and it's also a lot cheaper than trying to draw it on still form. But yeah, Pete Williams, he's got a channel for the Undergrads film. The process is actually quite funny, and the script is supposedly really, really good, and I can't wait for that movie to come out. It'll probably come out in like next 5 years because it takes a long time to do it.
I want to support it though because I liked that show. Like, everyone goes like, "Oh, I remember when music videos were on MTV." Yeah, that was a long time ago, but they still played music videos and played really cool shows like Undergrads and Daria, and I love Jackass.
Remember The Head?
There was a Spider-Man animated series on MTV.
Yep,
yeah,
2003.
Patrick Harris voiced it.
Yeah.
I liked that show. Not my least favorite Spider-Man show.
Mm-hmm.
It has the funny thing is, when it came out, it was supposed to be an in-continuity show to the Raimi Spider-Man movie. And
yes,
then,
yeah, I remember hearing that.
And then it just wasn't. And that's okay. That is on my Grail collectibles list. There's a Spider-Man action figure from that show. It comes in like a really big box, but it was like $90 a decade ago, and I don't know what the value of it is now. And I'm not cheap when it comes to collectibles, but I really don't want to pay $90 for an action figure that's this big.
That Spider-Man show also integrated the Daredevil movie because they had a black Kingpin that was in the same model based off of Michael Clark Duncan.
Didn't he do the voice?
I think he did the voice, or he got a sound alike. But it was funny to see that pop up. I'm like, oh, they're linking this to Daredevil. I guess they really must have liked the director's cut because the theatrical was not too well received.
I have the director's cut in my living room, and I watched it once, and I do remember it being better. Quick aside, I thought the Punisher director's cut, the one with Thomas Jane, is so much better than the theatrical cut because it has a whole subplot about the gambling in Cuba, and it makes the movie like pretty solid. I already liked it, but
yeah, I actually enjoyed that movie. My dad and I watched that pretty regularly back when I was still living at home.
Still my favorite Punisher.
Oh,
yeah.
Beast Wars,
even over John Bernthal.
by a country mile.
Oh yeah.
All right. I haven't
so-
actually seen the Punisher Netflix series. I just know a lot of people that praised it.
I don't want to hear the Punisher growl.
I only saw Punisher in season 2 of Daredevil. I didn't want to check out the Punisher series because I knew some of the writing team on that, and I knew they wouldn't nail it, and apparently they did not.
No, they didn't. It was kind of a it was. I wouldn't call it a disappointing show. It was. It just doesn't. A lot of these shows try to like distill the essence of a character down to the like a sentence, and then they don't really do anything else. The show really wasn't that interesting. I think did it have 2 seasons or just 1?
It had 2 seasons. The only thing I know is that they stole. I can't remember for what Punisher book it was. I don't think it was a Mike Baron one, but they stole a line where the antagonist gets under Frank's skin by saying, "How brave of a person are you if you couldn't defend your family?" And it's like, ooh, that is deep, because he's that's his entire motivation, is that his family's died in a crossfire, and he's gone crazy, obsessive to take out every criminal element in the city.
I like my Punisher with an air of I could eventually go. Like, that's why I like Thomas Jane one, because it feels like after his mission's complete, he might not go back to like a life where he gets remarried and shit, but I don't think he's gonna be. I never thought of the Punisher as like so psychologically scarred that he growled at people and was like an animal. The John Bernthal one, while interesting and entertaining, it's like an interesting take on it. I'd rather watch my Punisher be Thomas Jane. Like, I would never see John Bernthal Punisher use the popsicle stick to make the guy think he was getting his skin burned off. That's my favorite part of that movie.
Hysterical. Yeah, that part of the movie is absolutely hysterical. That scene's great.
Yeah, and the whole cast too. Like, you got Dave and Rebecca Romaine Stamos and John Panay. Like, it had a really good cast. I love John Travolta as the bad guy. And the whole plot where he made him kill his own people. Like, I made you kill your best friend, I made you kill your wife, and now I'm going to kill you. And he has that revelation, and he's getting dragged in the car parking lot. Yep. He's like, ah!
Yeah, like, that was badass.
Normally, he just shoots people in the face, but he makes him do it himself, and it's just so much more gnarly. Like, I think that movie, I won't say it's underrated, but I think it needs to be reevaluated and looked at more favorably, because it has a lot of good stuff in it. And now I'm just reading all the chat, and everybody's talking about the Punisher and the Tick and all this other fun stuff. Like, the Tick was great. I prefer the Tick on Amazon Prime.
The cartoon and the 2 live-action Ticks were great. Like,
Patrick Warburton was a pretty good Tick.
He was. My favorite episode of the Tick was the Tick versus the Tick, where they go to like the superhero club, and there's a guy that's calls himself the Tick named Barry, who keeps changing his superhero name and his gimmick. And
I need to go back and watch that one, because I don't really remember the Tick that well, like the cartoon. Because I was like 5 years old, 6 years old when that was on, and the jokes kind of went over my head. So I'm like watching Batman and Spider-Man. I'm like, oh, the Tick's on. This is like the stupid superhero show. I want to see adventure and action, not, Lady Liberty and Deflator Mouse. Or was it Batman Well?
It's no, it's Deflator Mouse and American Made, and then the live action, it's Lady Liberty and Batman Well.
Because I know we have a listener who uses the screen name Batman Well, and I always get a chuckle because I'm like, yeah, the Tick. But we had some good stuff. We're in a weird period where, like I was going to say a moment ago, these streaming services seem to be used as an excuse to revive properties that couldn't make it on network TV or like high-end cable channels. And so that's why we have so many dumb reboots and reimaginings and revivals. And it's nice.
Yeah, but then they're not monetizing those very well either, is the thing.
I mean, Netflix is failing at this too. So Suits was a huge hit on Netflix when they got the rights to it. Yeah. Then they made the sequel series, which they premiered, episodes aired. Not a single person I know has ever seen it or talks about it.
Yeah. I remember that show being a big deal on network TV.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a big deal for the first little while, and then it plummeted to the bottom half of the ratings for the rest of its series. Like, it was just above cancellation every year. But it had like 6 or 7 seasons, each around 22 episodes. So it's perfect model for like sitting down to watch on Netflix, because you know it'll take you like a month to get through it if you're watching Netflix every day, or several months if you kind of pace yourself. But today we don't make 22 episode series anymore.
No, you get like maybe a 10 episode season of something,
lucky.
and yeah, if you're lucky, and then a lot of times it's close to 8, and then they just drop it all at once or drop half of it all at once.
How do you guys think that they're gonna make money back from the new Stranger Things? Because isn't that like so expensive to produce? This new season's supposed to be like the cost of 2 Marvel movies.
Yeah, it's also supposed to be the last one too. So
they don't skip like that. All comes
and it's
into
been
the
how long since the last season?
2 or 3 years, I think.
2 or 3
At
years.
least
Yeah, so a
3
lot of
years.
those kids have probably like gone through puberty. Well, we
one of
know
them
the lot of them are
married.
well beyond
What's her
puberty
name?
because Millie Bobby Brown just got married, right? And she plays what's her butt? I haven't seen
11.
the show. 11? Yeah, I haven't seen the show. But yeah, so I mean, if she's old enough to have gotten married outside of a couple of states in the union, then like, you know, that's
They're old
probably
enough
an
for
indication that
retirement,
they're-
dude.
Yeah.
Like, Finn Wolfhard is the show. I enjoy the show, but the show gets stupider, like dumber every season, to a point where like the 3rd season was like ridiculous. The Russians have a secret base under a shopping mall in Indiana. Like, say
That's
that sentence
cool.
out loud.
Russians
and
don't
not
give a
feel
damn
stupid.
about no Indiana.
They do, because the void has been opened in Hawkins, Indiana. Like, I am not a Stranger Things hater at all, but it makes me wonder, like, where the streaming shows are going to go eventually, because we'll use a James Bond analogy real quick. When they did Moonraker, they had literally gone to space. There was nothing bigger you could do. So the next movie, you bring it down to Earth and you make it real low tech with For Your Eyes Only, and then you build up. I wonder if we're getting to a point where these shows are going to be so extravagant and expensive and, you know, mind-boggling CGI that after they become too expensive, we're going to have to recondition audiences. Like, because we have a whole generation of people that won't watch old movies because, well, there's no CGI or the CGI looks bad. You're going to have to recondition generations of people to accept TV shows that don't have, you know, billion-dollar special effects budgets. I think that's going to hurt entertainment even more.
Well, when you're reliant on that, it's going to hurt it more. I mean, you can still have really high-end special effects in the show, but you have to now use it sparingly.
Yeah.
Like, if you have one set piece...
Your movie can't be 95% spectacle.
Exactly, because number one, the budget goes too high. Number two, you're not writing to hold people's attentions. You're writing to basically just say, oh, look, a fight scene or a set piece of high-intensity chasing or something.
Slash in the
And
pan.
then you don't have any of the characters, where you go into the reversal. You're like, if you make these characters great, knowing that you only have, say, 3 set pieces in your film, when those set pieces hit, they're going to hit a lot harder. I mean, that's why you can go back to Superman the movie. Superman as Superman is only in the movie in like 3 scenes, or 3 sequences, really. And everything else, it's young Clark, then Clark Kent at the Daily Planet with Lois. And those special effects shots really resonate because there's some scarcity to them. They're special, and they spent a lot of time on those specific shots. Where now, if you've got 80% of your movie a special effects shot, well, you don't get to spend as much time on it because you have to hit that deadline, which means you're getting maybe 70% rendering capacity out of that. And like, I know I've seen a couple of plates, background plates for Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania that have been properly rendered, and they look incredibly real. Like, they look 1,000 times better than what we seen in the final cut. And the only reason I know that is because I have a relative who worked on one of those special effects plates, and he copied the file and then took it home and then worked on it, finished it himself just to see how many extra hours would be required to get it up to normal standards, the same standards that that we used to have back in the 90s when we had CG special effects. And it took him about 8 months for just that one shot. And it looked immaculate. It looked like everything was where it's supposed to be. Everything was in proper scale. The clarity, the colors, everything was exactly as it was supposed to be. But that movie needed another year minimum with their special effects shots to get it that way.
I've always wondered why modern CGI sucks. I thought it was maybe a stylistic choice, but I mean, rendering times make sense, because there was some stuff early on that Like there's a shot in the first Spider-Man, the flame scene where he goes to the house fire to fight
Yep.
the Green Goblin, and he does the slow motion dodge of the
Yeah.
laser bats. That looks real to this
That
day.
holds up today. Yeah, that holds up today so well. So well. And I think specifically for, your action and your superhero stuff, gonna keep doing those. You need to tailor the storytelling to being able to limit your budget a bit better. Like, keep Spider-Man out of space. Keep him out of doing all this nonsense with aliens and, things like that. All right, you already disconnected him from the Avengers. Cool. Tell a street level story with him.
You can have him fight aliens on the street. Like in the second issue, he fights aliens. The Terrible Tinker is an alien. But like,
yes.
But it's like, I get what you're saying though. I'm just being a dick right now. But it's like, you don't want multi-dimensional time
Correct.
space continuum. Let's take him to Titan. Let's take him to Never Delete. Like, that shit works for Thor. That shit works for other characters. I wouldn't mind just like, I didn't like the Batman that much, but at least they kept it localized or centralized to Gotham for the most part.
They kept it centralized to Gotham, and you can. The CGI was pretty limited in the film, I would say. So you can do the same thing with Spider-Man and limit the CGI to maybe some good swinging shots, which none of the MCU films have. Sorry, Iron Boy fans. All of the MCU Spider-Man films have crap swinging
fake
shots.
wrinkles that they put in his costume, and like he looks bad. Like the CGI model they use for the character looks fake.
Looks bad. Does not. The Raimi films hold up better. The Webb films hold up better visually. It's not even close. Yeah, you can do Kingpin. You could do freaking Tombstone. You can do, so many villains that are more grounded street level.
Do Hammerhead, Silvermane, Tombstone, and Kingpin all in one movie. Have Spider-Man fight the mob. Don't give me fucking. Hell, you could even throw the Scorpion in there if you need like a high-tech villain.
Yeah, you can put Gargan
Madam
in
Web.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, that version, not the Eddie Brock. Well, sorry, Eddie Brock. Or Matt Gargan became Venom. That's where I'm.
Yeah,
mistaken.
Matt Gargan did become Venom briefly. Yeah, which was a weird choice.
There has been worse. There have been worse Spider-Man stories.
there have. Yes, there have.
All right, we hit 300 tonight. All right, cool. So I guess
Hell yeah.
some of the stuff I'm doing behind the scenes is working beyond just the topic tonight. Folks, we are in the push of the summer of bullshit. We'll call it that. I was going to call it BS, but fuck it. We'll use the real term. It's 11 o'clock.
I was about to say, we're almost 2 hours in. I think we can get away with it.
Yeah. We're winding things down. We're going to get ready to check in with you guys. But this has been a fun show, folks. If you like us to have these fun, natural conversations, let us know and get involved. I read the comments constantly. I mean, I wanted to comment about Jim and the black and white movies. When I was younger, I didn't like black and white movies. But you know what changed my take on it, Jim? The Twilight Zone. I watched it. It was so weird and different. And I was like, well, black and white's cool because the Twilight Zone's in black and white. And so I bought into it. I still don't do subtitles. I'm sorry. I will wait for dubs. I can't. I don't want to read my movie. It's the medium. Now, if it's the only way to consume something, I understand. I won't limit myself. But like, if I can watch it dubbed, no matter how crappy of a dub it is, anime or not, I'm gonna watch it dubbed. Let's see. Let's check in with the audience, though, guys, because I'm sure they have a couple more things to say with us or to say to us.
Heck yeah.
Our friend Xavier the God says, the only reason we got Dragon Ball Super was because the Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, and we got those movies because Dragon Ball Evolution sucked. That it did.
We didn't get those movies because Dragon Ball Evolution sucked. That's not causal. Dragon Ball Evolution sucked like donkey balls all on its own. That movie is an abomination that had no business existing. Dragon Ball Super had its existence doesn't have anything to do with evolution.
All I can tell you is, as a Dragon Ball Z fan, the show lives and dies on Dragon Ball Z. I've tried to watch Super. I've tried to watch these other things. It was a cool thing that I caught as a kid at the right time, and I watched the show, and I'm still kind of like, oh yeah, I still feel that excitement. But it It's like I got Goku, like a couple figures, and I've never owned a T-shirt. It's as far as I can go with DBZ. It's just, I like it, but I don't love it. It's not Star Wars. Ugh,
I've got a
I said
decent
that out
collection of Dragon Ball universe figures, but thankfully, it's nice when it comes to anime figures because there are a lot of manufacturers who will make pretty detailed, good-looking, non-posable figures, that have, a simple stand and whatnot for $25, right? And so I got a bunch of those. And maybe every now and then I'll shell out a little extra for some deluxe ones that are more like 40 or 50, and those are, a bit bigger. They're usually part of some sort of an action piece set. Like I've got one from the Dragon Ball Broly movie where it's Broly versus Super Saiyan God Blue Gogeta, and that's cool. And I spent a little extra money on those. But I don't think I've ever worn a Dragon Ball T-shirt. I don't think I own one. I don't think I've ever owned.
Yeah, it's not that I'm embarrassed. I've just never seen something on a Dragon Ball. Like, there's nothing from Dragon Ball Z that I want to wear. Like, orange is not my color, unless it's Halloween. We had Xavier to God with a hard question. Fuck, marry, kill. Simpsons King of the Hill or Batman the Animated Series?
Ooh.
I mean, marry Batman the Animated Series, but I've never watched the other two.
Well, kill Simpsons.
Yeah, Simpsons is dying. I'm marrying King of the Hill.
Yep.
And I'm fucking Batman the Animated Series. Because while Batman the Animated Series is still awesome, and it's still, like, when the first notes hit, and you see the red sky and all that shit. That's still awesome. But I want to watch King of the Hill regularly. I don't really... Batman's like a special occasion, an acquired taste. It was a great part of my childhood, and I love it. But I gotta throw Batman is just a fuck, and King of the Hill is the Marion type. Peggy Hill. Shrubbles08 says, I'll take an Uncle Ben and a Steve Urkel, please. I guess I gotta make a Steve Urkel button. Have I ever... I don't have Steve Urkel buttons. Why am I asking you guys?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a Steve Urkel button on the channel. Yeah.
Well, here's your Uncle Ben right here.
Who's that Pokemon? It's Uncle Ben.
I will look for a couple replacements. We do have some sitcom buttons.
Oh, Bob Saget! Oh, Bob Saget! Oh, shit!
What the hell?
You've never seen the Tourette's guy?
No.
Probably because he's at Jolly Pirate Donuts taking a 2-hour shit. Look him up. He was a guy he was like early YouTube, and he got really famous, so he faked his death so people would leave him alone. And then years later, he's like, I'm not actually dead, and so he made more videos, and, nobody cared at that point. But
Tried to pull an Andy Kaufman, huh?
yeah. I knew he was from Ohio because I would watch the videos, and I'm like, wait, he's at Kroger. Wait, he's here. I know where this is. And then one day I drove by literally where he was in Columbus. I'm like, there's Jolly Pirate Donuts! And I got really excited. Yeah, people were like, what was that button? That's the Bob Saget button. Bob Saget has seen those clips, though. There's a stand-up bit where he's like, my name is a curse word to children. And it's just so funny. Highly recommend it. Let's see. Do we have anything close to Steve Urkel before we close this baby out? We have this one.
Put a chick in it, make her gay.
That's always a
Steve
winner.
Urkel is anything but gay, okay?
That's
Jaleel
true.
White
Steve Urkel-
is the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog. At least one of the most iconic voices of Sonic the Hedgehog.
He's the only one to me.
I like
But-
a lot of them. I'm also friends with one of them.
I'm not friends with any of those voice actors, but I've only seen him play Sonic because I liked Sonic when he was on that show. But when he got like that anime redesign for Sonic Adventures and it got weird, I was like, I'm done. I couldn't relate to it anymore. Also, I got into wrestling, and I thought anything that wasn't wrestling was pretty lame at that point. I'm like, The Rock is cool, Pokemon is not. And so I was just
Fair.
like done with it all.
I was able to relate to Sonic the Hedgehog before he had green eyes as well.
Is it because you secretly have blue hair and you dye your hair brunette color to just blend in?
That had to be it. That's the only possible explanation. I wore red shoes my entire life from the time I was a fetus, and I actually had blue
You were
skin.
born in red shoes, right?
I was born in red shoes, man.
Well, I wasn't, but I can relate somehow because we are friends. One more button for you, just because I want to press this one.
Finkel is Einhorn! Einhorn is a man! Oh my god! Einhorn is a man!
Shit you
Great
can't say
movie.
today for 500, Alex.
No, yeah. I wouldn't let you do that today.
No. I do love that show. Or that movie, excuse me. The show, not so much. And I don't even like the second Ace Ventura. The first one is the tits.
Yep.
The second one is the shits. We're in a rhyming mode tonight on the show. So, guys, before we close it out, have you consumed any piece of entertainment that you want to share with the audience, or have you had anything that really caught your eye that you're excited about coming up?
I mean, I really loved Mission. I talked about it last week. I really loved Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning, and I'm genuinely looking forward to Superman. Like the most recent trailer, I was already sold, but now I'm more sold, I guess. So I really hope it revives the superhero genre to the correct degree. That maybe it puts people on the right path and putting a bit more effort into things. Going back to some simple, fun storytelling, endear your characters to your audience. I loved Thunderbolts, but I was one of 12 people that went and saw it, so it doesn't matter if I had a good time with it.
It was weird, too, because both screenings I went to were not, like, even close to being empty. Here in Cincinnati, it had an audience.
Yeah, the IMAX show that I saw with my dad in South Carolina. The theater wasn't full, but it certainly wasn't empty. It was more than halfway full.
Do you think it's going to do better than Ballerina? Because that comes out this weekend, and I legitimately don't give a shit. And I like John
I'm
Wick
actually
movies.
interested in that one.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to see it.
I've heard some good things from fairly reliable people. So Ballerina might have something interesting. I'm looking forward to a few movies this year. Happy Gilmore 2, Superman, obviously, The Naked Gun.
Yes, that's
sequel.
my number one.
With Liam Neeson.
Yep. Tron Ares. I'm looking forward to that. The Nobody 2 looks all right. So I enjoyed the first one for what it was. So I'm interested in checking that one. And then F1 with Brad Pitt. That looks fantastic.
That I saw that trailer when I went and saw Mission Impossible. That looks really good. That gave me vibes of like the high quality, driving or racing movies of the last couple of decades, like, Rush and, Ford versus Ferrari, that type of quality.
That was a great movie.
Yeah, it was. I'm kind of here for it.
So yeah, like I like we've got an okay summer, I would say. Like it's not every like a really heavy charged set of following weekends. They're spaced out a bit, but it looks pretty balanced, and I'm all for that because all those titles, all those trailers, they all look like they're going in the right direction, the way Hollywood should have been. Again, all of these movies, with the exception of Superman, were shot almost 2.5, 3 years ago. So that's, like, as I said, 2024 would be the year what we would see Hollywood change for the better. And then each subsequent year, you're going to see that change more obvious and more obvious to the point where you'll almost forget to realize, well, when was the actual turning point? And the turning point was basically late 2023, early 2024.
2023 was such a garbage year for movies. Like, it
was only a handful of good ones. It was like Oppenheimer and Barbie were like the most profitable and talked about, with I think a Dune 2 was that year as well, and Wonka. So it was like,
no, I thought Dune 2 was last year, wasn't it?
Dune 2 was December of 24 and early last year, wasn't it? Or what? No, wait, I got to double check this now because it's been.
I could be misremembering.
No, yeah, Dune 2 came out in
quote me.
2024. Yeah.
Okay.
I still haven't seen it, and I have no excuse.
I still haven't seen the first one.
they're really well made. However, I do still think the '84 Dune is a bit better because it hits everything that's needed to be hit in that movie.
What?
I turned that movie off. We tried watching it in college. I was like, can we do anything else? I think we watched an episode of My Name Is Earl. But you know, I'm optimistic about a lot of stuff. There are some games that I'm interested in playing. Not a lot of new comics. I'm interested in making them, but not really buying a lot of them. But I have been reading. I got so nerdy in the minutia. I found in my storage, I have the Star Wars newspaper strips reprinted, and so I read that this week in the morning. That is my favorite era of Star Wars. It's like high pulp adventure with like the most 70s clothing you can possibly imagine. Like they're all wearing like high collars and fucking Han Solo's wearing a cape at one point. I'm like, what is this?
Hey, if Lando can do it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is before Lando existed, dude.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. These all are like, I think the strip debuted in 1979.
Was that around the time when Anakin Skywalker's name was actually called Tan Skywalker?
He was not referenced once in this book.
Okay.
It was all like, Star Wars was so new that the characters wore the same movie costumes from the first movie. Princess Leia wore the buns in her dress every issue. It was like, Luke, they just didn't want to draw his costume right, so like, oh yeah, we'll put lines on his pants this week. Or Han Solo will have like a different gun belt because we don't want to draw all the designs on it. But it was a lot of fun to read, and it made me realize why I like Star Wars, and it helps me get through my book a little faster because I'm not pulling my hair out going, why am I making this? I hate these movies. No, I'm making fun of the shit I hate, and it's a lot of fun that way. So that is all that I've been reading this week, folks. I'm getting ready to go to Oregon. Remember, folks, we are going to be this is our only live show this week, and we have some buttons to press. Don't worry, I'm not going to forget about you guys. But this is our only live show this week because Nick and I are heading out to Astoria, Oregon for the Goonies 40th anniversary. If you're a patron, you'll be able to watch that documentary. I'm going to make you guys an Ollie-style video in the last blockbuster on Earth. We're going to Bend, Oregon to check out the last blockbuster. So, of course, it's going to be fun and kitschy. I'm still not going to like videotapes because I lived through them and they sucked then and they suck now. But other than that, I'm really excited to go to the last blockbuster and maybe rent a movie. I still have my Blockbuster card from college. So
I still have my Blockbuster card from when I used to work there in high school.
Oh, wow.
Blockbuster just smelled nice. It always smelled like those weird videotapes, but I liked Blockbuster. I was a Hollywood video guy personally, but you know, renting shit was cool. It's why stuff could be made. So many weird, obscure things because there was a rental market and people would discuss these weird movies. They would describe them to each other. I'm trying to get to where they would discover. Sorry, it's late. I've been up very early today, so I'm ready to close this thing out. But yeah, folks, we got a lot of great stuff coming for you. You've seen 2 videos this week, and it's only Tuesday. And so the summer of bullshit's here, and we're going to keep pumping this stuff out, quality content, stuff that I'm happy with at a regular pace so you guys can always be involved. Make sure you keep WCBS at the top of your subscriber list. Don't miss anything we do. And I got exciting stuff coming from collectibles. Like on Saturday, the Ollie's Road Trip starts. So you'll be able to watch the first leg of the trip. We went to new stores in Nowhere, Ohio. So be on the lookout for that. It was crazy. I saw more Shurikopters in a single day than I saw people. That's Ohio for you. But let's check in with our chat. We got another message from our friend Enrique. It says, can I get a detention button and a Die Hard, please? Of course you can get a detention button and a Die Hard. Let's see. Your detention button is right here.
You had enough yet?
No.
That's another one.
So?
You just say the word, I'll keep going.
Go.
Eeny, meeny, miny.
Mo.
Your mother was a...
Ho.
He was a famous clown.
Bobo.
Mitch, cut it out.
I like that movie quite a bit. And here is a movie I actually love.
Glass? Who gives a shit about Glass? Who the fuck is this?
This is Deputy Chief of Police Dwayne T. Robinson, and I am in charge of this situation.
Oh, you're in charge. Well, I got some bad news for you, Dwayne. I'm not the one who just got butt fucked on national TV, Dwayne.
Argyle's great. Die Hard has no bad characters.
Nope.
And the one that, like, honestly, they're just, you talk about a well-written movie on every level. I love Die Hard. But folks, we are all caught up with the super chats. We're trying to keep these shows around 2 hours to keep them fun and tight and non-meandering. But if we're deep in a conversation, we're never going to cut anything short. But we're going to get out of here. I'll be back. There'll be another video before this Saturday's Ollie's Road Trip, and then be back next Tuesday night for the High Council. I will give you guys a brief overview of what we saw in Oregon, but we're going to save a lot of that for Thursday since Nick was there, and, you know, we'll find out if Nick has Game Pass. Find out the next Thursday night on WCBS. But until next time, folks, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.